Hello, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Sonic Talk Podcast. This is episode 103, covering stuff that happened in September, but recording in October because that's just how timing works out sometimes. A lot of stuff happened in September. Arguably too much stuff, which is why we are going to be, splitting some of our takes. We're going to cover all of the major Sonic Superstars news and Sonic news, and hey, we have a bunch of IDW comics that we need to catch up on as well, and maybe we'll do something fun at the end with live-action One Piece.
Oh, hey, YouTube now has timeout lengths.
Sure
ranging
does.
from 10 seconds to 24 hours. Neat.
That was the voice of Nuckles87, writer for Sonic Stadium. Hey, Knuckles.
Yes, hello.
And voice we have not heard yet is Shigs, a.k.a. Jason. Hey, how you doing, Jason?
Hey, I'm doing fine. How are you?
And this is the voice of GX, a.k.a. the Spin Dash, a.k.a. Chris.
You know, in terms of like actual news items, this is probably the shortest list we've had in a little while.
A fair bit, but that's only because we have decided to take all of our impressions and everything from the Sonic Frontiers third DLC major update content, whatever, and push it over to next week. Because, number one, not all of us have been able to put a significant amount of time in it, and number two, this show's probably going to be long enough as is without that, there's Sonic Superstars news. There's comic stuff happening.
I mean, we could probably fit it if we cut One Piece and what we've been playing, but I really want to talk about One Piece. So,
Frankly,
works out for me.
Still playing it, and I beat it once, and then I didn't make a new save. I just erased over the old save. And I'm on Tails Island right now.
Oh, you're talking about Frontiers, the regular Frontiers. Yeah, you can leave the save file, you boob. Why would you do that?
At any rate, the one thing you have been playing, Alex, has been Starfield.
Sort of. I technically played it right when I was done with most of my Sage obligations, almost a month ago, and then I went on a 3-week hiatus, and I went back to it today. But yes, I have played a bit of Starfield, and it is a very fun game. So I've always been a big fan of space stuff. Well, okay, not always. But before space, I had dinosaurs, but we're not getting the dinosaur RPG anytime soon. But yeah, so I love space stuff. I really love space sims. I've talked about that on here before. Now, unfortunately, as a space sim, Starfield is very, very basic, which doesn't entirely surprise me. I admit I kind of skipped all of the presentations and stuff, so I didn't entirely know what I was getting into. I just heard it had a really good physics engine, but as someone who loves Bethesda games, I love Skyrim. When I say that, I used to love Oblivion until the scaling made it just impossible. And I've never played Fallout because I'm not a big fan of post-apocalyptic games. But anyway, so Starfield is a game that still does scratch multiple itches for me. It is a space adventure. It is a thing where you can fly around in a spaceship and shoot stuff. And you can also explore planets and do space adventure stuff. So it does scratch all of those itches for me in a way that that a lot of other games haven't really been able to, because they've either been way more focused on the space aspect, like Elite Dangerous, which is a very fun but very hardcore space sim, or it just doesn't want to deal with space at all. A lot of sci-fi RPGs don't tend to let you fly around in your own spaceships, and that has kind of put me off on touching them all together, because if you can't fly around a spaceship, then what's the point? You're just on a strange planet shooting aliens or something.
One of the factoids that I kind of heard floated that the week that this came out, from people who were looking for something different, was a very, very good week for No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky is a game I really do need to get back to, but honestly, the complete lack of structure and any kind of storyline beyond get to the center of the universe has kind of impeded my brain's ability to really get reinvested after I lost it the first time. But with Starfield, I can feel it slowly getting its hooks into me. So for Starfield, it starts with the typical Bethesda method where you're actually not a prisoner, but you're a lowly miner who is just like out in the space boonies, and you get hitched onto this adventure to deliver this mysterious artifact, regardless of whether or not your character wants to or not, and that is kind of how the game starts, and you're able to build your character, give them certain traits, which is something that Skyrim didn't really do. So Skyrim, you basically just you picked a race, and I think you could pick from a very small number of classes. But for me, I picked a space scoundrel, so like a Han Solo type, and as my primary skill set. So I'm a decent pilot, which I want to be a pilot, and I'm also good with a pistol. So like I said, Han Solo type. And then I got to pick some aspects to my background. I'm from Neon City, which is like this cyberpunk town that I haven't even been to yet. But when I go there, because I picked that, I will have access to certain quests and dialogue options that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I'm also being actively hunted by some mysterious for something I've done in my past that is not elaborated upon. And so every now and then, I'll just be attacked by bounty hunters. So you can role play in this game in a way that hasn't really been possible in a Bethesda game in a little while, and I do appreciate that, even though I haven't really had the time to really kind of sink into that yet and really kind of do any kind of role playing. But so I've mostly been doing just kind of early campaign stuff. So I've been doing some early missions for Constellation, which is this society of space explorers that doesn't really care who you are or what you've done, so long as you're willing to go out and do some space exploration stuff. And it's been fun. The shooting is thankfully shooting works pretty well. I was afraid going into that, this is an RPG, so is my character it's going to be a terrible shot or what? But thankfully, no. It functions pretty well, although I do still feel pretty weak early on, which makes sense. The space combat is solid, nothing great, but it's about what I expected. And on the whole, I'm digging I'm digging the early locations. I'm digging the sense of scale that the universe is giving me. But it all kind of comes with one big caveat, which is you don't really get to explore space. And this is something I certainly would. Problem with it. This is certainly something I would have known had I watched the presentations. They didn't hide this, but to me, that is that is the biggest issue with this game by far, is that even though you're free to explore the planets and you're free to explore the towns and do all the usual Bethesda stuff, when it comes to actually moving from planet to planet, unless you just decide to engage with the space stuff around a planet, which you can talk to a variety of NPCs, you can fight space pirates, you can talk to merchants and stuff. Although I haven't encountered those yet. One of the very first things I ever encountered was just this space race thing, right? Someone just challenges me to a race, and I can I can do that, but you don't get to fly between planets. You don't get to fly around a solar system. You're really just kind of limited to like this space in orbit above a planet where you can do some things, and then you choose where you want to go. And you just hyperspace to that, and like it really feels like Bethesda was just really afraid about making the space aspect of this game too essential and too big and too like too non-user friendly. Which like space games, the really big space games like Elite Dangerous, they are not user friendly at all. But I think they could have found a happy compromise, like somewhere around along the lines of like No Man's Sky or something in terms of how much you can do in space, because as is, it just feels very limiting. Like you're in kind of just this elaborate menu system or hub world. So it's not a deal breaker for me because I at least still get some space combat. I still get some spaceship stuff. So that's ultimately going to be enough. And I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into this game because I only just did one of the constellation missions, which was towards the beginning of the campaign, you can choose between 3 different missions, and I chose the one where I rescue Barrett, who is this character you meet at the very beginning of the game, and he basically gives you his junker of a ship to fly around in. So I just did that. I'm going to be doing a little bit more, then I'm going to like properly start exploring space. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to building up my own ship, because you can do that. You can build a ship. Haven't touched that feature yet. You can build a crew. I've just been utilizing the NPCs that are throwing themselves at me because they've mostly just been like stuck on planets or something. Yeah, so it's fun. I've been enjoying it, and I think, and like, given what I've heard, this is a game that's gonna get more engrossing the further in you go. Although I do kind of wonder what everyone means when they say just go straight through the campaign and start New Game Plus, because that's where the real game is. And I am wondering, like, what that'll involve. So I'll probably be talking about this again. Anyway, I'm done. So who's next, GX?
I figure I'd bring up some Mega Man. It's the only thing
you're
playing.
next.
Yeah,
All right.
So I have, I was recently away on a week of business travel, and it usually involves me bringing more than I really need with the intent that, like, hey, I'm going to get a bunch of personal projects that I can do on my laptop done. And what ultimately happens is, I get some of it done, but by and large, I pick something that I know is probably a bit achievable on my Steam Deck, like small experiences. Usually retro experiences. A while ago, I started on playing classic Mega Man through the Mega Man Legacy collections. And I had gotten up to 5 and sort of stalled out on 6. It just comes and goes. During this business trip, I went ahead and I started picking up at 6 again. 6, I can understand why I stalled out. It feels like 6 is kind of difficult to start from 0. Like, finding the point of ingress with the Mega Buster as your only weapon is pretty difficult. It gets much easier once you actually have that foothold, and learn some of the boss patterns, but actually getting a full KO with Mega Buster only, it gets pretty tricky in there. But effectively, that was the last of the NES ones that, it was alright. It was fine. It definitely has, as a super late NES game, it definitely has a lot of strong visual tech going on. It has a lot of strong style to it. But
pretty sure a lot of NES games at the time were like utilizing extra chips and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But also, developers were just learning how to, run a few more effective tricks on, like, okay, how do you make this look like this, or what looks good in NES art, that kind of stuff. Like, there's a strong difference jumping between what Mega Man 1 looks like and what Mega Man 6 looks like, despite the fact that Mega Man Sprite looks the same throughout the entire series. But yeah, that took me to the second half of the Legacy Collection, which I don't believe was handled by Digital Eclipse, and thus doesn't have all of the same bells and whistles. And then there's also aspects of it that are just not as immediately available. Things like rewind, things like just save states. Like I would try to beat all of the Robot Masters honest, but I will totally drop a save state right before their
When I was attempting my own Mega Man marathon years ago, I was doing it on EverDrive, and that thing lets you save state. I was save stating like a person who cheats a lot. Like yeah, they're very hard games, and
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of myself.
Yeah, like I said, my personal rules are, number one, on the path to beat the Robot Master the first time, do not look anything up. And if you save state, it's only to save state in the room directly before the Robot Master. And do not save state in middle of a fight. And I would occasionally use rewind if it was like, yeah, there's no way I could have predicted that, or this is just a badly designed jump or stuff like that. But I would not generally rewind during a Robot Master fight or anything like that. There were a couple points in some of the more obnoxious Wily fights where I was a bit more willing to stretch my devotion to that creed. But by and large, I generally stuck to it. The second Legacy Collection for the Classic Series is... It has a couple stipulations to it, because the first Legacy Collection was all NES games, which means, hey, you build an emulator that supports rewinding, you make it fairly straightforward, and you got it. You did it. You only have to really account for one type of game. Legacy 2 covers a wide variety of different platforms, because you figure Mega Man 7 was a Super Nintendo game. Mega Man 8 was an original PlayStation game, plus Saturn, but this version's based on the PlayStation. Mega Man 9 and 10 were Wii games, specifically WiiWare. And they effectively just had to put those all together. So the way that they've kind of traded it off was, you do not get save states in the same way, but you do get checkpoints. And you can basically choose to save a checkpoint and then go back to that checkpoint, sort of as if it's a save state, but not entirely. Like, it still sort of reloads the level at that point, but you do get to spawn wherever that save state is, or whatever that checkpoint is. And usually the checkpoints are, you just completed a mid-stage sub-boss, or you just completed the path up to the Robot Master. Basically anywhere where if you died, you would respawn that point. So it's kind of useful if, like, hey, I lost all my lives in a Robot Master fight. I'm not really that interested in trekking all the way across the level again. I'm just going to jump back to that checkpoint and then try again. And by and large, 7 I found pretty difficult. 7 is certainly not the easiest, or not the hardest of the games in the series, but
that's one I have played on the Saturn.
But it is not. I think you're thinking of 8. 8 was on the Saturn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 7's like, I don't think I would call it the hardest. I think there's parts in 2 that are absolute BS that demand complete memorization. But by and large, 7's interesting because it feels the most fully featured. 7, even compared to something like 8. 7 has the slide, 7 has a number of upgrades that are hidden throughout the stage, 7 has a number of secrets that you have to seek out, in order to really unlock some of these elements. 7 has optional boss fights, which 8 sort of does depending on your version, but not in this version. You get to there's a secret Proto Man fight if you know how to find it. There are all sorts of extra unlocks and special forms for Mega Man and special weapons and stuff. And by and large, it's pretty good. It has a absolutely complete BS final boss Wily capsule fight. Like, it's just absolutely miserable. You have to hit him with one weapon, then quickly switch over to a different weapon to prevent him from using a dodgeable but extremely difficult to manage attack. And that, hurts quite a lot if you get hit by it. It was a fight that I had to use, like, all full E-tanks on. It was just absolutely nasty. 8, on the other hand, 8's definitely among the easier in the series. It was on the PlayStation. All of the sprites and everything are much more chunky. We've strayed pretty far from how he looked on the NES at this point. It has an upgrade system that requires you to find, like, hidden bolts, that kind of stuff. And by and large, like, it's a little bit more of a breezy Mega Man fight. It's certainly a lot easier to take on the Robot Masters with just the blaster, but then also if you find their weakness, some of them are easier to take down with it than others, but it is also extremely clear what their weakness is and how to contextually use it, because sometimes their weakness just counteracts one of their attacks. Like, one of the good examples is Clown Man. The prime ability is swinging around the central post with his arms. So if you release a tornado thing that shoots upwards, he gets caught into an animation where it pushes him upwards and then smashes him to the floor and lets you do additional damage. There's a late stage, a late game boss where it's like, the game has taught you to burn down foliage with a fire attack, and there's a boss robot who basically hides in bushes and teaches you, hey, yeah, use this thing that you've learned to use in this effect. Has a bit of an annoying Wily boss, but more manageable than 7. Funny part is technically the Legacy Collection Part 2 is not deck compatible, but if you're using the non-standard layer of the of the Windows approximation, and I forget what it's called at this, it's like Proton, thank you. If you're using what is it called, Glorious Eggroll version of Proton or something, it does seem to handle it. But what it doesn't seem to handle is the animated cutscenes. So, effectively, the very infamous animated cutscenes of 8 just, I did not see them at all. Now, I've seen them in other collections, but it's kind of funny whenever you get to the ending and just expect...
Dr. Wily.
Yeah, I missed all that.
The voice acting is so freaking weird.
The voice acting was, who do we have in the office at the time? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It was a weird era for that kind of stuff. And I could tell you, after going through all of these, especially the last 2, 7 and 8, to then go back to Mega Man 9 is very jarring, because that was the first WiiWare one. That was the first one from Inti Creates in this sort of throwback style. And what they decided to do for that throwback style was effectively a lot of the same moves that Mega Man just has in the very first game, which means no sliding, no... What was it too? There's sliding, and there's...
Charging?
Charging, thank you. None of that in 9. Like, there is none of it, and you can't upgrade to get
I
it.
think that was one of the things that just turned me off even trying the game.
It definitely makes it feel weird, especially when it's not necessarily meant to be played directly following 5 other Mega Man games prior to it, but it was introduced as the throwback game. But it is very jarring whenever you get so used to these just being your moveset to then go and lose it. Now, it does have some benefits, like it does have a bolt-related store, so you can just stock up on E-Tanks if you want, or you can get an item that, for a level, will just drop you to half damage, or you can buy the ever-useful weapon balancer, so that you don't have to worry about switching a weapon in order to get the weapon refill power-ups. But it's all right. It's all right. It's still a fun time. I've made it to the Wily stages, and I'm looking forward to getting to 10, which I have never actually played before.
Now, my question is, once you beat 10, are you going to do Mega Man and Bass?
If I do Mega Man and Bass, I'm going to cheat like hell. Mega Man and
And what about the Wily Wars?
Maybe. I'm a little bit... It's hard for me to say, because there is going to be a point where I do kind of want to just get started on X, because, truth of the matter, I've played portions of the first X, but my Mega Man experience is, by and large, the classic ones. I haven't played a lot of any of the X series at all. And I know it's a pretty different beast compared to the others. And I'm really looking forward to that. And it's kind of like, if I could get at least through the numbered ones. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking like, well, I gotta play Mega Man Soccer, I gotta play Rockman Battle and Chase, or anything else like that. I just kind of want to push to the new stuff that that will, give me the new experience, give me the experience I haven't had. I'm not necessarily looking forward to when I'm crossing over into the later X games and how much BS they have and are known for, or God forbid, the Zero series, which is, by my understanding, have a very hateful reputation towards the player.
Oh, okay. I've heard good things about them, but that might not include difficulty.
Everything I've heard, including from Mega Man people, is that the Zero series is very, very difficult. Like, overly difficult, to the extent that whenever they released the DS collection sometime back, is like, no, we need to include a special mode to tone this down. So.
Well, okay. At least you'll have the. At least you'll be able to play it in the collection. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess I also got to fit a replay of 11 in there. So
that's a really good one. That I really need to get around to being that one day. It's a lot of fun.
I played it through to completion the first time around, but I've heard like mixed reputation from it, between like, especially from people who are real into Mega Man. And it might come just with the territory of the type of Mega Man that it is, or the ways in which it does or does not evolve from the core Mega Man classic formula, or the ways that it does not necessarily evolve into the X formula. But I think as a casual fan who's just trying to get through the games clean, who's just trying to get through the games, it scratched the itch for me. I enjoyed it.
I do have more of a connection to Mega Man X, but that's entirely because the very first Mega Man game I ever played was Mega Man X Maverick Hunter on the PSP, which I got so close to beating. You saying, Shigs?
Yeah, I forget how young you are sometimes. That would be your first Mega Man game.
Well, like, I was old enough that I could have played the other Mega Man X games when I was like a kid or something, but like, I didn't really try getting into Mega Man until Maverick Hunter, which I like got on sale or something because it looked cool.
Yeah,
And it was a lot of fun, but those final bosses were just pain. And then I think I lost my save file or something. So
yeah, I had an NES and a SNES, and my first exposure to Mega Man was the Anniversary Collection on GameCube. So yeah. So Jason, you've been playing some Baldur's Gate 3?
Yep, that's the new hotness that's out there now. I kind of got caught up into the hype. I heard so many good things about it. People are saying how polished it was for, a day one release and such. And I looked into it because I didn't know if I was being interested on it. It's was available on Steam Deck and PC for the longest time. Then it became available for PS5, digital only, which is kind of weird. There's no physical release of this of any kind.
really, not even on
So
PS5.
nope, PS5 does not have a physical release.
That is surprising.
Yeah, luckily I do have some stuff on Best Buy under warranty, so I have that Total Tech thing. So I found out recently you get when you're on Total Tech, you also get a discount on eShop type, cards. So I
Huh.
got like a $75 PSN card for 63, so I was able to buy the game that way. A lot of people were complaining that or saying that because it's made for PC that the PS5 might not be able to handle it in terms of controls or anything, but I had no problem with it. They have all your
Yeah,
choices
I heard good
are
things
looked
about
at
its controls.
in a dial type way, circular, and you just press the L1 and R1 button, go between the options while it's also use the joystick circular for controls. And yeah, I mean this is a very more traditional role playing game. You are creating your character, you're playing a role. There's other characters that join up with you. Um, what I was going to say, it's there are options where you can influence others, and it's done through the 20-sided dice, like it classic Dungeons and Dragons is. So it can do it like with that option.
Oh, wait,
Um,
the dice are an option? I thought that was just how the game was played.
no, that's how the game is played. You have the dice for options, but that's not really for attack. In that attack is closer to like Final Fantasy Tactics on the PlayStation 1, which is my kind of game where you're positioning yourself, you're getting it ready for attack either with a distance attack or something close up like a sword or you can do arrow and stuff. Ranged
Hmm.
or close up,
Now,
And you also have a lot of extra abilities. So uh, I am very new to Baldur's Gate and this kind of RPG, so I had to play it on easy because I was screwing myself over quite a bit playing out, screwing up quite a lot. But yeah, it is fun. Has a decent story. You are a character where you're on board this mind flayer ship, and this Cthulhu-looking guy is putting a parasite into your eyeball, and it'll eventually take over your mind within a few days. So you and the other party are in the same condition, and you gotta figure a way out of it. But then you find out because there's days that pass and you find out, well, nothing's happening. In fact, if I put more of these parasites into my brain, I get stronger and stuff. So there's some kind of magic thing
interesting.
there's some kind of magic being protecting you because they want to assault the absolute, which are the villains, and destroy them. They're the ones who are inserted the mind flayers into you. So you got some companions with you. This wizard, this kind of
Uh,
foppish vampire character,
Astarion.
Starion, yeah.
Yeah, everyone knows who Astarion is.
And you can let's see, is a girl who knows the dark arts. I forget her name right now. Shadowheart, and Les Lesar, the
I
this
think that
kind
her
of
name
half
is
orcish woman.
Lazelle.
Lizelle, thank you, Lizelle. Yeah, this kind of half
So
orcish
have you
woman.
not encountered the lady with the horns?
No,
Car.
I've been looking for her. I have not
Jeez.
found it. I have not found the kind of devilish woman lady.
I'm blanking
I've
on
seen
her
her on
name.
the box art, and
Carlec or something.
yeah, I don't know where she I might have met her and accidentally forgot to put her on my team. I don't know. I don't think I've met her yet. Either I've screwed up or she's not available so far in the game.
As
But
I
it's
understand it,
usually good
she's
for.
like available early on, like they all are.
I wonder if she's DLC because there's a DLC
But
pack you can buy
she is not. She is not
separately.
DLC. I can tell you that much.
Huh. Yeah.
Um, the thing about this game is that you can like miss major characters.
Yeah. I guess that's a bit of a problem. Yeah, I might have to do a new game plus or whatever when I finish it if they offer that.
As
Yeah.
I understand it, Baldur's Gate 3 is heavily based off of it's a Dungeons and Dragons type game, right?
Oh yeah. It's dungeon. It is literally Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
Is that right on the thing? Baldur's
like
Gate
it's
3 is a
literally
Dungeons
it's
and
based off
Dragons
of all
game.
the mechanics.
Oh
And
yeah.
I believe it's like it's a kind of a linear-ish adventure, but you get a lot of freedom in regards to
Oh
how you
yeah.
tackle everything.
Every single option, especially when you're discussing people, you have a wide variety. It could be a good guy, it could be a bad guy. I kind of regret my early actions because I'm always the nice guy. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll help you. No, you don't. Free of charge, whatever. And then I'm running out of gold right away. Where if I just be a jerk and say, yeah, I'll help you out for a price, for some gold, then I'd have a lot more, money.
Yeah, never turn down gold in an RPG, Shigs.
Yeah, that's what I learned
I have never seen the benefit in turning down money, unless I'm already swimming in it and I'm just trying to role play as a nice guy.
Yeah, and you can romance and make love to people in your party. But it took me a while to have any options at that, except
Fun fact.
the vampire guy was flirting with me, and the wizard was too. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't swing that way. And
Oh come on, Asterion sexy. If anyone can make you gay, it's him. Um, but So, as a fun fact, this is when the PC version came out. Apparently, the sex drive of all the characters was turned up to 11, and they would basically start romancing you immediately. But they had to, but they patched that out because that's not how it's supposed to be. So there was actually like so it's actually like you could have started the romance with any of them pretty early on in the game originally.
yeah, Shadowheart's the human lady, but she doesn't really take that much interest in me. I ended up with Lizelle, the kind of orcish woman. Grow
Apparently,
up.
her race is like based off of aliens or something.
It feels more like with Klingons than anything.
Yeah,
'Cause they
like
are orcish, and I went to her area where she thought they'd be able to get rid of the mind flayers, and they weren't. But her society is all about violence and war, and like there's a class where they're teaching the kids how to fight and everything, and they basically have to kill each other to graduate. And if you're
I
too weak, you're dead.
I watched a whole video on her race. I won't say much because I might qualify as a spoiler for you, but they're basically compared to like space pirates, except they like travel between dimensional planes instead of
Now they seem a lot
planets.
more like Klingons to me because they're just very warlike. They just want to fight constantly.
So, how far have you gotten
But I
into
do
the
like that
game?
every single character has their own background and their own culture. Like what's his as to whatever his is like a daywalker vampire. And I
Astaria.
let sorry, I let him bite me and you know drink my blood. It didn't turn me into a vampire or anything because he's like a half vampire. And then Gale's got another wizard guy he's dealing with, and his deal is he's got to kill himself at near the end of the game to save the world or whatever. Possibly, we there's still that option.
Oh yeah, I
And the
think
and the
I
one
saw a video on
the one
YouTube where
cute
if sorry,
Shadowheart, the cute human girl, is actually really into the dark arts. She's kind of creepy that way.
I saw a
But
video.
yeah,
Never mind.
there's a ton of exploration. There's a really good deep story. Very excellent voice acting in this. So I definitely would approve it if you're even slightly into RPGs. If this is not a traditional Japanese style RPG where you just stop and everything's turn based. Although this is turn based, it's definitely more tactical
Hmm.
in that regards. Like I said, Final Fantasy Toxic. So I guess this is a Japanese RPG.
I've
Where you're still taking turns. You can, like I said, have ability to take extra turns on your level. You got to watch out for who's the weakest and keep them at a distance. If you're at an elevation, you're more likely to get stronger hits than if you're, you know, uh, on the center. So having the high ground, like Obi-Wan says, is a good deal.
um. So I've been watching some videos from this
You
game
seem
on
very
YouTube.
interested in this game.
Well, I've been watching videos of this game on YouTube, and like it looks a lot of fun. Like my two hangups is one, I have too many games to play, and that kind of takes priority over me dropping another $60 on this. And two, when it first came out, it was only on PC, and I not want to do all the PC stuff. I want a controller. And three, I'm kind of waiting for it to hit Xbox when I do play it. But
Apparently, the Series X is the way to go if you're doing
I
Xbox.
I don't have a Series S, so that's fine.
Yeah, the S
But
is
like
not.
so, I
They're having to
watched.
make compromises.
But like for me, my main exposure to this game has been like watching videos of the character talking to animals, because like there gets lots of very funny videos of like all the animal dialogue of like the squirrels and the bears and the rats and the stuff like that.
Yeah, there's. I mean,
And
that's kind of what.
there's just a whole
what's
side
been-
of this game you can skip.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's kind of what have been held up about this particular game as a streaming game, because most of the time you think streaming in terms of like, hey, you watch someone complete something difficult or like enjoy a game alongside someone. This one, because it is so story built, you could really enjoy it in the same way that you would enjoy like a D&D session or a D&D stream where you know you're
it's
on.
very D&D, which is really what attracted to me. I thought it was extremely fun so far.
And once you've beaten the main game, I have a recommendation for you. Be sure to check out be sure to make a Dark Urge character and play through it with that if you don't mind the story taking some very dark turns, both optional and not. I have seen some stuff from that, and woof.
Yeah, I almost want to just restart it again just to make up for my mistakes the first time, but I'm gonna play through it. I think I'm getting close to the end. I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm showing
what
what I'm
chapter
playing
are you
through.
in?
I am with the absolute like cultists right now, and we're near the final villain. We're just having to do
Oh, okay. It does sound like you're
we're
near
just
the
having to
end.
do a favor to him. So I think it's the final. I'm not sure.
I know there are
'Cause
three acts
there's
in
still
this
a lot
game.
of. Well, I think we're still on the first act then, because there's still quite a bit of
Then
map
you
to
got a long
explore.
way to go.
I have a feeling
Fun-
I'm on the first act because it looks like there's still a lot of the map left to explore.
Funny that you put a squirrel on my head, Chris, because one of the things you can do in this game is a squirrel attacks you early on, and you have the option of either ignoring it, kicking it, or if you have animal speak to animal, you can talk to it.
You can also remove all your character's armors and have them just walk around naked for a while. Of course, it's no good if you're under attack; then you're gonna get killed instantly.
And that is a very early in-game thing, so I don't think that qualifies as a spoiler. But yeah. So are you done?
I
Are
pretty
we
much
ready to?
done now for that.
Okay, let's move on to some Sonic stuff.
Yeah, we got some news. I guess let's just kick it off with, I guess, what we will call the Sonic Superstars Mega Block.
Yes.
Starting off with the fact that, hey, we got an animated short whose name I can't remember. Trio of Trouble. Like, they are specifically evoking Triple Trouble
which makes me so happy.
as a premise in this specific thing. Obviously, we don't have the Knuckles aspect of it, but they are not hiding it. They are leaning deep into the comparisons to Triple Trouble with this.
It's pretty wild. We've gone from them barely acknowledging the 8-bit games to them utilizing one of them as like at least kind of a part of their big 2D game, like referencing it and stuff, bringing back one of the major characters from it. So that's pretty cool.
It's been a long time since we've had Fang in a major game outside of cameos.
Oh man, yeah, Fang. It's wild seeing Fang get animated. Like, I never thought I would see Fang in animation. But that alone makes this short special to me.
The discourse around it has been weird, I would say.
Really?
Well, there's been a lot of
I haven't had anybody like complaining about the fact that his name's permanently Fang and not an active weasel. I think having it for that is it's one of his code names or something, you know.
Yeah, well, we can go over that in the comic book. What you were saying, GX?
Yeah, the controversy as it stands is just like, hey, we see Eggman mouthing as if he is talking, and then doesn't.
Like
which
the voice acting.
Yeah, I guess I sort of get the disconnect from that, but also I understand the stylistic, choice for that. By and large, being like, these are meant to be like they've sort of situated classic Sonic as just sort of the like the simple innocent branch of the series. It's very divergent from the way that they've handled the modern series. Like, it feels like a complete 180. Now, that said, like, it comes with the acknowledgement, like, the characters do talk, air quotes, because we've had plenty of, we'll call them canonical comics.
Yeah,
where,
like they talk in the comics, but they kind of have to.
but also it's an understanding like, hey, this is a stylistic choice. I would say the solution has been floated that like maybe they talk in sound effects in the same way that classic Sonic sound effects just happen in as standard sound effects in Sonic Mania Adventures. But like, does it bother you guys at all?
No, I am perfectly okay with them going with this as a stylistic choice.
It's
just like classic, 20s, 30s kind of, cartoon style where they didn't, necessarily talk.
Yeah,
I think when you're dealing with animated shorts, and video game cutscenes, just going completely silent can work great. Like, I think it works great in this short, where everything's just communicated visually, and it works well, and it kind of helps give classic Sonic more of its own brand identity, which I would prefer that they go with stuff like this rather than like say these characters are specifically classic Sonic. Like Fang can never have a modern counterpart. I'd rather they went with stuff like this, where hey, like when we depict them in a visual medium, they don't talk.
I don't think they've kind of expressed. I think they've expressed that for Mighty and Ray. Have they directly expressed that?
When we were at E3, that was when they said that like that they're two separate brands, and classic characters and modern characters kind of exist in their own bubbles outside of.
They've proven works pretty well for them so far, because even in the comics we have our classic stories and then modern as well. And I think it's working out good.
Well, but like I'm not a big fan of that personally. I would like to see character crossover, at least from the classic side. But regardless, like the animation, it's fun. Everyone has a lot of character. It conveys its plot well. It was just a fun watch. And
Mhm.
I'm glad they've kept doing this, because it really does kind of fill a Sonic animation hole in my heart that Sonic Prime hasn't really filled, which is like, this kind of more serious, more game oriented storyline.
It it definitely, I appreciate that they are, we'll say, able and willing to just basically turn these into two separate brands, even though they encompass the same heavy air quotes characters. In my head, it does sort of better guarantee a future for 2D classic style Sonic, in a way that, you know, Sonic Generations does not. In a way that, like, even Sonic Mania does not necessarily. It's certainly an acknowledgement that the audience, wants, there is an audience for this stuff. So, uh, yeah. But also, it wasn't the only story content that we got. Speaking of, there's an understanding that these characters can talk. They released a prologue comic, not like a published comic book, but just like a
A little web comic like
yeah,
that we got with Frontiers,
which
and
we.
I really do hope they keep going with this stuff going forward.
I mean, they certainly have so far. This isn't the first one they've done with it. They did it for they did it. Did Sonic Colors Ultimate have a comic aspect as well?
No, it did. Oh wait, yes, I think it did
Sonic
actually.
Colors Ultimate did. Sonic Frontiers had both the animation and the comic, and then this game did as well. So it definitely seems like a
And Sonic
pattern.
Forces had the comic book part.
It did, but that was before this was like a really strong drive. Like, it's almost safe to say that the marketing techniques that they use pre Forces and post Forces are almost unrecognizable. But which you might be able to actually point that to. No, because even Sonic, Team Sonic Racing had an animation associated with it. It didn't have a comic, although it did have an IDW tie-in.
Yeah.
So yeah, arguably,
I
it's
feel like we're probably
pre-Forces
getting
and
these web
post-Forces.
comics instead of IDW now.
It makes sense, I think. Like, it always felt like the IDW ones, or even going back as like Archie, whenever Archie was sort of obligated to, in another place, in another time, let's have the events of a game sort of inject itself. It never felt like it told a good story. It never felt like it had time or space to breathe and sort of set a vague premise for something that might happen at some point. And even then, like, with that in mind, it never felt like it was solid promotion. But also, you know what? Like, I like the idea that Sega's Sonic brand management is going into the plethora of comic artists, many of which are IDW artists and writers, and being able to utilize the fact that they have access to that talent. That talent and experience.
That talent was utilized here, and we got a pretty good comic book out of it, because it, much like the animated short, the comic book is a fun time. This really does kind of serve as an introduction for Fang, and it's a nice one. We even like they have a little joke, kind of like getting all of his names out of the way. They even reference Jet the Jerboa, which like it was apparently from a really old comic book magazine rumor or something, and it appears like it's setting up. It's setting up Fang's character, which is like he's kind of a he's reluctant about this whole thing, but he's just doing it for the money, of course. But he just hates to be here. It seems like he's out of his element in the jungle. But it's also looking like we're going to see how he meets Trip for the first time. The sun gazer lizard girl.
Actually, it's something that I didn't bring up in the discussion of the animated sequence, but I think I think what it's doing quite well. And let me be clear. One of my biggest issues I tend to have with the Sonic games is the way that they do handle or attempt to handle character work. I think the animated shorts, and to an extent the comic, have shown very adept sense of character work, just through little behaviors attached to these characters. Like, you can get a sense of what makes them tick, how they behave, what their behaviors and motivations are, just through the animations that they set up. And I think Trip is a good example of that. Trip is a character that we don't really have any meaningful information on, except for, like, hey, here's a vague introduction in some interview text saying, oh, we want you to sympathize with her or something. And whenever we get into this, we just get the sense of, like, no, Trip is a character who cares and has sympathy for the flora and fauna of the island, and is a character who kind of seeks approval, even though it's not really going to come from the pair of ne'er-do-wells that she's aligned herself with. So then we get the characterization of Fang, who's egotistical and sort of glory grabbing and not really paying very much attention to the other two people. He's just sort of focused on what he's doing. Sorry, go on.
No, I didn't have anything to say. At least I don't know if I did. It's gone now, but I don't think I'm pretty sure I was done when you started talking. I don't know. It's a gorgeous comic book as well. Evan Stanley and Minho Kim did very good work, and I'm looking forward to the other two parks, because we're gonna have 2 more parks coming over the next few weeks, and then they'll be going back to those Fast Friends Forever comics on October 23rd.
So yeah, hey, we got a closer look at Sonic Superstars Battle Mode.
Green Hill is back.
It's the level that everyone wanted. I don't know. I don't have issue.
I'm okay with it, especially for Battle Mode. But honestly, what really excites me about this is that you have, like, Metal Knuckles, Metal Sonic, and Metal Amy, Metal Tails all in this now. Like, Metal Knuckles I'm really excited for, because we haven't had him since Sonic R, and it is the exact same design, which is really cool design. So like, this is the version that also has, like, an online component. So I'm hoping it's fun, because it'd be very neat to have another online Sonic game to play with people. I'm
still kind of not sold on it, on the idea of it, but at the same time, like, look, I'm here for the extended levels. I'm here for the single player mode. I'm here for maybe single player with the multiplayer elements of it. It's not that, like, this seems like it's bad, but I tend to think of it in the same way that I thought of, I don't know if you remember the multiplayer from the original New Super Mario Brothers, where it was more, it was sort of competition focused, and it just wasn't the drive for me.
All I know is with the competition mode, and all I know is with the new Super Mario Brothers multiplayer is they had designed levels around it, and it kind of made the levels boring single player. It sounds like they've done the opposite for the Superstars cooperative play. going by what we've been hearing about it.
I was more referring to like the original DS one, not the later ones.
Oh, I've never played the DS multiplayer. Okay.
But I don't know. Look, I don't
just
know.
know the existence of Metal Knuckles guarantees I'm going to be logging a couple hours.
I'm starting to think I might get the Switch version over Xbox just for multiplayer, because I know most people I know will probably end up with the Switch version over.
I'm going to have it on the PS5.
I guess one of the concerns I have, and it leads into a discussion point later on, is I'm concerned about the skinification of this game.
Oh, yeah, because of the DLC.
There's
medics.
So yeah, it concerns me that Sega seems to be taking this as an opportunity, and they've been down this path for a while. Like, we've been dealing with, every game, whether it makes sense or not, get some sort of extra special edition or pre-order bonus
deluxe,
or both, that comes with skins and extra resources. And like here right now, they want you to pre-order so that you can get one skin. They want you to get the special pack so you can get these other skins. And I see this happening in every other part of the industry. Like Spider-Man. Think about how the skin game's going to be for Spider-Man.
Oh, good lord.
Think about how it is for for any Ubisoft game that comes out.
I guess we might as well skip ahead to the cel-shaded skins, because it's such a shame, because those look so cool.
Do they?
And yet, I think they look cool, and yet you can only get them through like Kroger's. Or or Japan, as far as I've heard.
Okay, no. They're gonna, let's be real here. They're probably gonna sell them. They are probably going to sell them. I kind of hope
so. I don't know if I'll buy them, but
they did not sell the stupid Sonic Adventure 2 shoes in Sonic Frontiers, because that game,
the great Sonic Adventure 2 shoes,
the freaking stupid looking Sonic Adventure 2 shoes that people seem to like, because that game does not have any paid DLC, and it was ESRB rated to reflect as such, so that game is not going to get paid DLC. But also, like, look, this is not like a amazingly crafted piece of design. This is, okay, we put a different shader on these characters.
I guess. But I do share your concerns that they're gonna like abuse the skins in this game for pre-orders and for DLC and stuff. Because of course we're already seeing it. Like, for Digital Deluxe, which like, if I ever get this game for like, if I don't get like a review copy or something, I buy this game. I'm getting the Digital Deluxe version because I want Metal Sonic, Mecha Sonic. I want the Sonic Bunny skin. I want that stuff. I don't care so much for the Legos, but I don't know, that's also going to be there. And so it's like, if I want this stuff, I'm going to have to pay for it. And like, I hate that. If they were, they just want to give away skins for free, like they did with Frontiers, with this, then great. But if they commodify all the skins, then ultimately it's not going to kill the game for me, but it's still going to be a disappointing business decision. Like, I don't need the skins to enjoy the game, but it's still going to suck that they exist and that they're being used like that.
The issue that I tend to feel is, how much is this taking advantage of people who just have to have everything? Because I saw people lose their effing minds over these freaking cel-shaded skins. And don't get me wrong, like, but are they cooler than the skins that come with the pre-order bonus? Are they cooler than, you can get Mecha Sonic?
No, not cooler than the bunny.
So that's what I'm thinking of, is like, how many skins are you going to regularly cycle between? Are you going to be constantly doing this, or is it just the matter of I need the thing to be the biggest thing? And this is me saying that as someone who tends to have the bug in his brain of, oh, if something exists, I need to have the thing to make the biggest thing. And I know that is a mindset that could be taken advantage of. I personally, if they offer the cell-shaded ones, I honestly probably will not buy them out of principle, just because I am worried about the nature of this. In Smash Brothers, I was a bit more willing to, because of the way that I consume that game and enjoy building around around the Mii fighter and making those characters into a thing. In this game, do I need the Amy Rose to become the other character? I kind of don't. I don't think I'm going to be spending enough time in this battle mode to really justify it. And maybe that's me
keep
prejudging.
In mind, the battle mode is specifically for the robot characters like Mecha Sonic, whereas the skins work in single player and co-op. They are different things.
I also kind of think of it like the manner it looks not fit. Like, some of them don't look fitting. Like, even the Lego ones are kind of neat that they are making Lego ones, but at the same time, Lego doesn't visually fit with the stuff that they're designing. Like, I'm not getting a Lego skin for the world.
Like, I don't get the appeal of Lego minifig skins, I admit, but I don't know.
But you could, but
I guess it's part of their partnership.
But you could, okay. Let's drop the aspect of we are both competing to be the worst heel in each other's lives, which, to some extent, you can at least fundamentally understand. If you like Legos as the concept, then this would be, a skin of importance, perhaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, at least we can get on that page. But
like, I didn't disagree with that. I was just giving my personal view on the minifigs as a skin. That they're ugly.
I can certainly point to the money that Lego generates and the continued media empire that Lego continues to seemingly have, and say, well, I mean, you don't have to get it, but there's an awful lot of paying people who do. So
yep.
I can complain all I want. I can scream to the heavens about Funko Pops, but there is an industry dedicated to making a bunch of Grogu that get thrown in the trash. So.
But the good news is Funko Pop appears to be collapsing. Finally, the market seems to be dead. So yay!
Big Mom Funko Pop I paid $25 for.
Wait, they made a Big Mom Funko Pop?
You could
look that up.
You could tell me they made a Funko Pop of anything, and I would believe you.
That's partially why they're going out of. Well, not going out of business. While they're having. I wonder what the next. Is they make Funko Pops of literally everything.
I wonder what the next Funko Pop thing is going to be. Hopefully, it's not as hideous looking.
I believe they probably release a different design every day. At least that is how I've mentally internalized the way that their business model works. I don't know.
Oh, I hope it isn't the ducks. I know Sega's been doing stuff with them for a while.
Oh, that's
still waiting for the Citizen Kane or Orson Welles with Rosebud Funko Pop that they have not released yet.
Oh dear God! It's that. Here's the thing though, I would not. They are not above that, but also I feel like that would cause him to roll over in his grave.
Oh, maybe he would. Maybe that would cause him to rise from the dead.
I mean, I could pull out the old Andy Zaltzman joke of just strap magnets to them and have them generate electricity. But there's plenty of electricity over in TGS. Both like,
yes.
literally and figuratively.
Sega was posted lots of photos from that booth, and it made me insanely jealous.
My
Especially
friend
the
Cory Maru was there as well.
oh cool, oh yeah,
Take-
Korimaru, cool, yeah, and that's when he finally got to play the game.
Yep.
But
Took a nice trip to Japan. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, they had some
what?
more about the game. They had free manga for everybody who got to play. That's pretty
Yeah, it's like
sweet.
so. In addition to the comic book, there is a Sonic Superstars manga out there, um, which apparently it's like a prequel story and a guidebook. I'm kind of hoping Sega like releases some digital version of that over here or something, but I'm not holding my breath. But
Yeah,
what really caught my eye
everything
was,
Japan gets.
aside from the manga, what else really caught my eye was the balloon, the Sonic Superstars balloon. Because I don't know, that just I want it. I want like a smaller version of that. It just looks so cool.
Describe this balloon for me.
It's basically the Sonic Superstars logo with all the characters holding Chaos Emeralds sitting in a giant ring, but it's like a giant balloon that's hanging from the TGS ceiling on wires.
I'm going to have to look at this. Yeah,
I mean, I included links in the show notes.
Yeah, I have. It's been a rough week. I haven't looked at much. Oh yeah, this is like a proper Macy's style balloon. I was not. I was thinking like, oh, they put a flat image on a balloon. Like, no, they made a 3-dimensional thing. That's kind of impressive. That's kind of impressive,
Yeah.
I will say.
And there was also merch and I think dancers, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there was crazy dancing. They're also selling like exclusive shirts and Sonic masks and stuff. So they're really going all out for Sonic Superstars over in Japan, I guess.
I mean, they did the same for Frontiers. They really pushed Frontiers very hard in Japan.
I am wondering if like Frontiers just sold that well over there, or like beat their expectations by that much.
Where is my VTuber skin in Superstars, Sega? How can I play as this VTuber model?
That sounds like a fun idea.
That dear modding community. I have other requests, modding community, but also I want to see VTuber skin in this. Not because I think it would be good or because I like VTubers, but because I think it would be stupid. And I only have stupid requests for the modding community. Professor Pickle in Superstars. Make it happen. So yeah, there was plenty of Sonic Superstars news. We got our first taste of non-weird ripped music. We got actual
this
music.
was officially released by Sega.
Yep, it's that time of the season where they have a new game. They start putting out the comics, the cartoons, and bits of the music out.
They kicked it off with a T-Lopes track, which I mean, look, people have mixed feelings on Jun Sanao doing retro Sonic style music these days, but T-Lopes has his hand on the pulse of I guess classic Sonic, and it sounds the part.
Yep. Like you said that you weren't a fan of what you heard, Shigs, because
no, at the time I could barely hear it, and I think it was placeholder.
Okay, because like Speed Jungle, I'm loving this track. Like it is just it's kind of a classic T-Lopes track, but it just sounds perfect for Sonic. It's got like that Sonic boppiness, but with also some like jungle instrumentals. Like it's good.
It is good.
Let's pump a little bit into it for the podcast now.
I assume that we can't hear it.
You can't because I'm not sharing it with you, but they'll be able to.
Okay.
Like for me, it has a lot of CD vibes. That's kind of the place where I would put it between the the samples used, and then the way that it just goes into strong poppy rhythms.
Yeah. And we've also got a ambient track from Takahiro Kai, which is Dredd wrote in his article they assumed it's from the Amy Specific Act. And there's a fast rhythm techno sound for Act 2 of Speed Jungle from Hidenori Shoji.
Cool. I like seeing a variety of contributors to soundtracks.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So just going by what we've been hearing from this game so far, this is gonna be a great soundtrack, I think.
I enjoyed what I heard. It's not in my top. What I've heard so far hasn't hit my top 3, but I'm also not sure even Sonic Mania hits my top 3.
I mean, I'm not even saying that it is top 3. I'm just saying it like most Sonic soundtracks I'll classify as at least good. So.
Oh yeah. It's absolutely. I would listen to it and have a good time with it. And
but
yeah.
What's important to me is that it's got that classic Sonicness, but it's also it employs lots of modern instrumentals and technology and stuff, and so it just sounds like a nice modern upgrade of the classic tracks to me.
Hey, it's like I said, that's T-Lope's vibe. Like he was tagged for the Turtles soundtrack, and it feels very appropriate. He created something that feels very fitting with that 16-bit style game.
And he's also working on music for that Evening Star platformer.
Yeah.
So he has been busy, and that means that's also going to sound great. So I'm looking forward to that.
Here's hoping. Beyond that kind of wraps up the major stuff of Sonic Superstars. I mean, it's coming out this month. It's coming out in what, like, slightly more than 2 weeks?
Yep, and it's coming out in about 2 weeks, and we're going to be doing a special show for this one too, apparently.
I don't know, it never ends.
It's hard. We got Sonic, Mario, and Spider-Man all in the same week.
Yeah.
Yep, and I'm just gonna be playing Sonic and Mario because I'm trying not to spend $70 on a game.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah. It's oh jeez, that's right, Spider-Man and Mario.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I can at least wait until like November or something.
Spider-Man, I can at least wait until it hits PC. I haven't actually played Miles yet, so maybe I should play that.
Well, yeah, you do need to play Miles first. That is a very good game.
So this is
I like the fact that it's shorter too.
So this is more your speed.
Yeah, so Sonic Saturn had its 30th anniversary last month, and to celebrate, a couple of things happened. The Satam historian released, like, I think the first 6 hours of his YouTube documentary or something, which I haven't watched yet, but I figured we'll wait until the full release comes out, which was supposed to be like
point of clarification.
I think so.
Point of clarification. Is there even 6 hours of the series itself?
No, but he dives deep. Basically, like, the Satam historian is diving deep into the history of Sonic animation, period. Like, you know, it's deep. It's deep stuff. So that also involves stuff from Adventures of and stuff.
I'm joking, but also I have listened to multiple times a 3-hour criticism of Batman v Superman, so I don't get to complain.
I devour those video essays because I get my doing other things.
If you're talking about Bob Chipman, I did the same.
I've watched his. Yep. I have watched his analysis of that movie multiple times.
You know what else I've listened to before we go back to Sonic stuff? There's this guy who's been doing like these 4 or 5 hour long video retrospectives of iCarly and associated shows.
Oh boy,
iCarly.
I have watched most of them now.
I bet you could. iCarly was in a very like pivotal pivotal time
Pivotal.
in like Nickelodeon history and its development. I totally believe you could write a 6-hour thing on that. I've just been my current thing is the latest unfolding ideas was it folding ideas video essay on I think the latest one is on the game stonks phenomenon and sort of unpacking like what is actually going on, what actually happened there.
But yeah, iCarly, Victorious, and Salmon Cat.
Yeah, there's a movie out for that right now, Dumb Money. I haven't seen it yet.
I suspect one will have been better researched.
But to get back to the main topic, in addition to that documentary, we also got Sonic the Hedgehog Rejuiced, which is a long in production reanimation of the Sonic Satam episode Sonic Racer, which is one of the better season 1 episodes, in my opinion. Although, honestly, I think most of that show holds up surprisingly well for what it is. And it's just a fun project to watch, because it has contributions from loads of different animators with loads of different styles. And if you ever seen a reanimated project before, you know what to expect. But there's just like lots of cool bits of animation in here. Like there is some genuinely, there's like some good gags from some animators. Like not everything like looks good, but it's still like it still ought to be there. Like whether it's a genuinely good gag or just random, it's just it adds something nice to the overall project. But there's also just some really impressive animation, and there's like some impressive little action set pieces, which if you've ever watched Sonic Satam, you know that even if you like the show, its animation was never really all that good. Like it was like B grades Saturday morning animation.
It was coming from Deke, which like it was it was way higher end for what Deke would normally be doing. These were the people who were doing things like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and the Zelda cartoon, as well as a number like Deke worked on a budget.
Like for Deke, this is basically like some of the best I've ever seen out of them. But still, like seeing these, so it's like seeing like Satam Sonic like get some genuinely good animation is pretty cool. But putting that aside, what really makes this project special to me is this is like the biggest collection of like fan stuff of these characters that we have had in years, because as Satam, because Archie died, and so these characters have kind of been falling out of relevance.
Oh, Archie died.
So less fan art.
I hate to tell you this. I believe Archie dies fairly regularly as part of that series.
But so it's really cool seeing like Antoine, Bunny, and Sally like getting all this animation, all this fan art, seeing Satam Robotnik being realized in all these different styles, or like Eggman just popping up out of nowhere, but sometimes he's got red eyes. It's always so cool seeing all these different takes on TV show from all these different animators, and that's exactly what this project delivers on. And so, you should check it out, especially if you haven't seen Sonic Satam before, because, by Sonic Satam standards, like I said, it's solid.
I mean, I might recommend, hey, there are many possible ways to watch Sonic Satam on the internet today.
Yeah, guess watch the regular episode first, but...
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, watching the series will help give you context for what is going on here.
Yeah. But so you guys watched it. What do you think?
I did not watch it.
Oh, I thought you said you... Okay, I guess it was just Shigs.
Yeah, I did watch it. Like I said, some of it's really good, some of it's so. I could recognize some animators stuff in there before. What's her name? Who've been having problems with YouTube as of recently.
I even though I haven't watched it, they did have issues regarding the basically the same issue that a lot of Sonic creators on YouTube are having, where if you are working with animation, YouTube's child detecting robots will be like, this is a kid's video. We're going to mark it as kids.
No other reason.
And what's funny about this is they specifically made this to be PG-13, so they let some racier imagery.
Those jokes in there every once in a while.
Like when Bunny says one-eyed snake, a one-eyed snake pops out of a particular spot. Yeah, like, and I guess what's really cool, and like what because of the nature of this, like I said, things can be all over the place. Like at one moment, Princess Sally just is inexplicably a fly. Another moment, you're getting just this really good on-model fluid animation for like 5 seconds, and another, like Robotnik just like has a completely original design. Another one like SWAT Boxer lifting weights in a gym, and one of them has a package, we'll say, because like I said, it's supposed to be PG-13. Yeah. But yeah, so fun project. Take a look at it.
Indeed. This Sonic Superstars was not the only thing over at TGS this time. Apparently, Sonic Frontiers got an Excellence Award. I don't freaking know. I don't know. One of you explain it to me.
It's a good game, so it got an Excellence Award. That's all there is to it.
I mean, is it a good game in the context of games that released in 2022? Like, I've played a lot of games in 2022 that, some of which were from Japan, many of which were also better than Sonic Frontiers.
So Sonic Frontiers won the coveted
excellence, like a Mr. Burns excellent.
It won the Excellence Award in Annual Works bracket of TGS's Japan Game Awards ceremony, and it's shared amongst a number of other games, and it's intended to recognize high-quality works from Japanese developers released in the past year. So it is one of multiple high-quality 3D Japanese games, according to the Tokyo Game Show.
If you say so, I'll take your word for it.
Whatever you say, champ. Mario. Sega shared a photo of Morio Kishimoto holding the award and looking very triumphant.
I mean, it won the Famitsu Award for something or other, because Famitsu holds a lot of validity if you don't scrutinize.
Famitsu certainly has some interesting opinions. Didn't they give Shadow the Hedgehog a really good score?
I mean, if you pay Famitsu enough, they'll have whatever opinions you want.
Oh, don't say that.
There is
a buying off critics.
No. Famitsu is very dedicated to, having relationships with publishers. Read into that in any way that you would like. This is not even a secret. Like, it's just sort of out there. I'm not kidding.
Well, I admit I'm unfamiliar with this. I just know you're sounding like a Snyder bro, and that, like, I don't know. Whenever people start talking like that, I get a little
seriously, look at Famitsu's track record on this.
GX is right. Famitsu is famously gives a lot of high scores for pretty much it.
I know they give lots of high scores.
They give lots of high scores,
especially
with games that they've done work with. We'll say. Famitsu.
I still remember when Play Magazine gave Sonic 06 a 9. They're not around anymore.
You don't say. Print media not around? Jeez, who would have thought? Yeah, it got an award. I guess that's all we can really say about it. We could maybe talk about advent calendars. Jason, do you have any Lego advent calendars yet? I have one.
Oh, I did get the Sonic advent calendar last year, and they're releasing the same one this time. Well, they're also releasing the last year they also released a Sonic statue advent calendar, which I believe is just UK,
Yeah,
only if I'm not
that was
mistaken.
primarily a UK release, and this one is
And
also a
now they're
UK
doing
release.
one that's Tails one.
It also,
Yeah, you put a dismembered Tails back together.
yep, much like the one last year, it's sort of a Sonic scene
And
in
I have enough
Ice Cap.
Sonic and Tails statues. I don't really need this.
I am tempted to get some kind of advent calendar thing, although hearing
To
that this is
celebrate the
apparently UK
Advent.
exclusive.
I look forward to you
I mean-
celebrating the Advent, Alex.
I mean, look, just because I'm a Jew doesn't mean I can't also steal Christian holidays.
I think that's what that means. I think that's what that is supposed to mean.
My parents have celebrated Christmas all my life, so I consider myself a secular Christmas celebrating person.
You're into the culture of Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm in the culture of Halloween. I don't get involved in all the pagan rituals, but when I was a kid, I still put on a costume and got candy.
I love the old Sunday school story of when Jesus went out trick or treating for the first time. Oh, that one. Oh, it's so symbolic of what we do today. Speaking of symbolism, hey, we've got some leaked movie set photos for Paramount
Yes,
Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
I'm so
Oh,
happy
yeah,
that even though there's a SAG-AFTRA strike going on, we're still getting set leaks. But so
yeah, I mean, it's like we don't care. We'll just put the dummies out and do the stuff where they're scripted in, and not the actors.
Well,
yet.
you figure you don't need the actors or the script is probably already written, save for any rewrites.
I'm sure the script is rewritten, but there is going to be rewrites they have to work around.
So what's going on right now is they are just filming for the CG characters, and so what we have here is they started filming. This is a scene from Canary Wharf in East London, which it's got a cool building.
Ooh.
So looks like the whole set looks pretty cool, lots of colors and stuff, and we've got gun trucks and Japanese police cars. What all this tells me is that one, Sonic and friends go to Japan, and two, this is probably where they meet Shadow.
Possibly.
So,
or this is just
that
where
would be my guess.
they attempt to catch Sonic or something like that. I don't...
Yeah, mistaking him for Shadow and all that.
Like Sonic Adventure 2 is never at any point really interested in the prelude to what happens to Sonic prior to the first level. It does not care.
For that story, you have to go to Archie.
Apparently. But yeah, I mean... Look, I can't pretend to be enthusiastic about the Paramount series so far. It has made me not feel great twice. I'm not gonna not suddenly put a lot of faith in the third one to change my mind.
But this one has your favorite character, Shadow.
But all of that
By the
said,
way,
I am always in favor of taking the Shadow character and finding ways to make him funny. And I am more inclined to believe that could happen in this than anything that Sega touches.
Lord, I hope so. Because I don't know, like this movie's already going to be about some dark subject matter, so they're going to have to do some things to lighten it up a bit. And making Shadow funny would be one way to do that, although that might annoy some people.
Good.
I imagine.
Good. I want to annoy these type of people. I am here in the fan base to annoy them. That is what I live for. I want them to never find happiness with the things that they want out of the franchise.
But I just think that this is where Sonic meets Shadow, because in the games, after Shadow chaos controls away, Sonic gets surrounded by police cars and gun vehicles, and that's what we see here. So I don't know. That's just my theory.
The weird part is, do we have any indication at all that they're going to film in San Francisco, like in the slightest?
No, it sounds like it's all going to be taking place in London, which is weird because Sonic Adventure 2 like literally has an entire sequence that takes
San
place in a
Francisco.
real world place.
It's just San Francisco. They just did a San Francisco. Like that is all that first stage is. They just recreate. No, they didn't perfectly recreate it, but they just basically created a world around the fact that San Francisco has a very tall and windy downhill road, and they built entirely around that. And we may not get that here.
Yeah, I can only assume that they're filming here for like tax reasons or something.
It wouldn't surprise me, or if they saw like the strike coming and were like, well, we need to do some things somewhere, so what if we have some amount of control over here outside of the US? But more than likely it was probably just affordable. But yeah.
So,
we'll see Sonic in the Made in Georgia zone.
Oh, everything's made in Georgia. If it's not made in Georgia, it's made in Canada.
I am so sick of seeing that logo every time I'm watching
TV
now.
That's where the tax breaks are. That's where the tax breaks are.
So you know what I've been buying a lot of lately?
Tax breaks
Sonic
from Georgia?
Plushies. No, Sonic plushies.
Which Sonic plush has the tax break from Georgia?
I got Mephiles, Mephiles the Dark. I've got Infinite. I've got Big the Cat, E102 Gamma, and lots of others. And I'm really excited for this new one, Dodonpa! It's another obscure Sonic character inexplicably is getting a plush.
Yeah. I like the idea of it. I probably will not be getting it myself, but I like the trend of just, I don't know, pick someone who nobody was really asking for except for, you know, the crazy people, possibly me included, and just make a plush of it. Like, Dodonpa is an absolute nothing character. Like, he exists in the spin-
I forgot he existed.
I think they actually reference him once in Frontiers. Not that they don't reference everybody in Frontiers, right? Like, isn't that... Don't they once?
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah, Eggman's, voice recording things. That's where he's referenced. His company. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess it raises the question: what only appeared once character would you go for? Like, what would be the next only appears once character that doesn't really matter?
Well, Shade, but that's probably not happening. Let's see.
Honestly, I would probably buy Chip.
Honey the Cat?
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about Chip too, but Chip would be genuinely a good choice for a plush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would
I would get Chip.
I would be inclined. Honestly, my real wish is if they made a collection of all the Wisps. If they made a collection of all the Wisps, I would get that.
I had someone suggest that when I asked on Sonic Stadium, would you buy Deadly Six plushies?
Oh, you know I would. Oh, you know I would. I would put
I ran a poll. They got a minuscule amount of the vote.
Oh.
IDW ran away with it.
I bet. But also, I'm the guy who owns the Waluigi plush. Of course, I'm putting Zaz in everything I do.
Get one of those.
But yeah.
So like, I guess in terms of characters who only appeared once, Honey, Bean, and Bark would all be great. And let's see. Marine. I want Marine.
Sega,
it's genuinely kind of surprising that they haven't done anything with her yet.
I would say Sega doesn't really acknowledge Marine in any meaningful way anymore, but also I'm looking at the rest of the lineup for this set of plush.
She did pop up in a comic book not too long ago.
Jason, who would you want? What's your white whale plush?
I think you mentioned like quite a few Marine, Bean and Bark. more likely being out of the two. Um, I kind of think it's somebody who's only appeared once. That's
I am
pretty tough.
I am surprised we haven't seen a lot of IDW movement on Kit and Surge. I felt like those were going to be the shoo-ins for like these are the next set of characters that we were going to
Dark
push.
Spine Sonic. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
No.
That is certainly in the spirit of what we're doing here.
But yeah, we know that we of course know that Starline is coming. So I'm assuming that he's kind of next on the agenda. He hasn't got any kind of announcement yet. But yeah, like I would think that Surge and that they wouldn't waste too much time getting Surge and Kid out there, given that they were kind of the breakout IDW characters of 2022.
I can tell you who my day one purchases are. I recently went back. I found on eBay a good deal on the Tomy Sonic Boom Orbot. And apparently there were plans to release a Cubot, and it just never went into production, so that part is killing me. I would, without any hesitation, get an Orbot and Cubot.
You know what? Like, I would basically get anyone at this point. But, yeah, they would be, I guess, naturally good. Like, they could make them so that they can, like, kind of fold up into a cube and a circle, probably. They can at least do that with Cubot, I'm sure.
It probably would be tricky, but also they made a plush of a Flicky that you can turn inside out to make into a Motobug. So I bet they probably could find some way to sort of make that work.
Yeah. Like, their plushes are really impressive just from a manufacturing standpoint. Like, Big the Cat, he is my latest, and he has an individual belt. They've individually rendered all of his little, like, hair spikes. They have completely gotten his tail on model. So it has each of the different points on it in the back. Like, he has the chest fur. He's got everything. It's amazing. And it was also $40, but he's also, like, 14 inches tall.
Indeed. We got a new drop on Sonic Prime. We got a new teaser for Part 3, and
no release date though, which is odd.
No,
yeah, just coming soon. Weird.
I don't know. I'm thinking we probably won't see it until very late December or like early next year. Someone did the math on our Discord, basically calculating out that if it goes by the time between Part 1 and Part 2, then Part 2 and Part 3 would be somewhere in December. Or, I'm sorry, February.
Well, let me tell you, the space between parts of a Netflix release don't necessarily mean anything.
They don't.
But there is a pretty big gap between Cuphead's Part 1 and 2, but then Part 3 came out, like, just a few months later, in November. But less than a year before the show started. So, I don't know. I would still be surprised if we didn't get it by December.
By December, meaning by the end of December or within November?
By the end of December 2023.
Yeah, we certainly are hearing about Part 3 earlier than we have heard about Part 2 given the last span, which is why I'm kind of like, if they're willing to sort of ramp up the marketing for that, then I'm suspicious, like, it's not going to be ridiculously far away. Like, we're not looking at 6 months.
What I'm wondering is, like, will it release at the same time as the Knuckles series, and when is the Knuckles series coming? Like,
yeah, I thought I was hearing, that was supposed to be 2023, but we've only got 3 months left in the year.
Like, it's not unheard of for Paramount to announce something like 2 months before it comes out, but we have not seen anything, like not even a trailer, and so like they are definitely running out of time to announce something.
What will Paramount Plus do? They're
I don't know.
Will they have any content? Do they already have any content?
They've got Star Trek.
I know they have Star Trek. I know they have Star Trek.
Both said that at the same time. They got ton of Star Trek.
It feels like all they...
Ridiculous amount.
I don't know. It sometimes does feel like the only thing I ever hear about Paramount Plus is that they have Star Trek.
Like Brave New Worlds just had a great second season, and Lower Decks is going right now, and Lower Decks is really good. So
I love
you know.
Strange New Worlds, and I'm not a big Star Trek fan, but that's my absolute favorite Star Trek series.
Yeah, Lower Decks is great.
Let me tell you about Paramount Plus. It's cheaper than the other samples. We have a lot of Star Trek. We may not have anything else, but we have a lot of Star Trek.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah. What we will not have is hyenas.
Which surprises the hell out of me. I did not see this coming.
They were really hyping that. We were seeing a whole bunch of like Sonic costumes and stuff for the shooters.
Well,
and which is why this is relevant to us. There was a Sonic cosplayer with all these cool looking costumes.
As one of the hero classes, yeah.
Yeah, it was getting me a little interested in the game, and then they just canceled it.
Well,
although I heard it was terrible from the people who played it.
So yeah, that's kind of even before there was any sort of major like reveal of this, I never had a really good sense of like where Hyenas is trying to position itself as. Like they were occasionally doing these reveal videos. It for me, it was always sort of made synonymous because it was announced at the same time with their whole super game initiative. It was never really officially stated to be, oh, this is part of the initiative, but also they've been very vague on what exactly that initiative is, so, you know, it opens up speculation. It always seemed weird. It always seemed like a game that was just hitting a few years too late for being an extraction shooter. Like, I feel like the time of the extraction shooter has passed within the time frame that this game was being made.
Yeah. That's ultimately the problem with trying to chase trends like that, is that eventually the trends die. Like Fortnite is losing profitability right now, which is part of the reason why Epic Games is also making some
major cuts. Yeah, well,
yeah,
they could. Let's be real. Epic could afford to keep those people on. They have chosen not to. Creative Assembly, I am not so sure about, but also, like, what makes this rough in particular is this came after the Sega Rovio acquisition is kind of... It's not... I don't think it's finalized, but it's on the path to actually...
Oh, no, it's done. It got finalized last month.
Is it, like fully paperwork finalized? Like, we can say, oh, Rovio is technically now a Sega subsidiary.
As far as I know, yes. Like, I think they made a big deal out of that back in August.
Okay, I'm used to those taking, like, multiple years to actually fully go through. It kind of paints this move a little bit darkly, that, they spend an awful lot of money that I'm never convinced Sega actually has on buying Rovio and then making significant cuts here. And especially considering Creative Assembly, when I think of Creative Assembly, I don't really think of whatever game, like a Hyenas type game. And
it's a strategy games.
Yeah, they make
specifically like Total War.
They make that, and then they also had the breakout of Aliens Isolation, which I don't believe a lot of the staff that made that is still part of it, but by and large, yeah, I think of them as the Total War developers.
And I guess Alien Isolation is an example of Creative Assembly successfully branching out. But from what I've heard of Hyenas, there was basically no one knew what the game was supposed to be. They apparently restarted developing 3 times.
Yeah, and that's the impression I always got whenever they would show it. It's just like, I don't really get a sense of where you're going with this. You've never really made a real play on what the economic model is supposed to be. It sounds like they didn't know what the economic model was going to be either, between free-to-play or start. Like, I don't get the sense of where you would go with this as a games as a service model, but also like it
Now,
so Sega has I'm sorry, I'm gonna pitch this idea, but in
yeah,
sort of Sega has long had in their history the issue of their different branches not necessarily being in communication, being on the same page, and in some cases outwardly hostile to each other. And while I don't get the sense that there's a lot of outward hostility, I still get the sense of Sega divisions not really talking to each other or sharing expertise or being part of a larger Sega blanket strategy. Like it just doesn't feel like Sega Europe is even part of whatever Sega in Japan is doing. Like it's not marketed the same way, it's not presented in the same light, and in general, we don't always think of the stuff coming out of Sega Europe in the same way that we think of the stuff coming out of Japan. And
well, for me personally, that's mostly because Sega Europe is mostly acquisitions,
yeah.
whereas Sega Japan is mostly just like core actual Sega developers and stuff.
Well, I don't
Um,
well, with the exception of like the way that they treat Atlas. They basically don't really touch Atlas, so to speak, as far as we know. Like it sounds like they largely operate autonomously, and Sega kind of helps with marketing and then reaps the rewards, and then occasionally they get like weird crossover stuff.
I do believe Atlas, at least on the localization side of things, is more integrated with Sega now.
Localization, I believe, but that's like the localization stuff we're talking about over in America. In terms of Atlas development, like, I mean, Atlas development also has, we'll say, their director has issues. Let's say, I might leave it at that, but.
I'm actually genuinely not familiar with what you're talking about.
Okay, I guess I will explain this. Their director has made, we'll say, comments to the degree of like weird masochistic, misogynistic, comments along the lines of he does not believe that men and women could be non-romantic friends. Weird stuff like that, and
this is from an Atlas director?
This is from an Atlas director.
Jeez.
Yeah, sometimes that makes its way into the game. Sometimes it gets a nice splash of vagueness to not really draw attention to it. But my point being, like, do you ever get any sort of feeling that there's good communication between these different divisions or teams?
I mean, I don't know. I've never really gotten the indication that there's bad communication. But I don't know. That's not really something I've thought about.
So, like, my example for this would be a lot of my criticisms about Sonic Frontiers is like part of the way it is storytelling, some of the way it handles world designs, the way that it handles like integrating level elements with world map elements, and the way that it presents its story. And my thought process on this is Sega has a team that is entirely dedicated to making these narrative-focused worlds with action elements, with action gameplay in the Like a Dragon team. Like, why aren't they getting someone from that team over on Sonic Frontiers to kind of guide, this is how you make a game like this? And maybe,
I don't know. I would assume it's because they're like making 2 Yakuza games at once. They probably don't have time.
Probably, but also they probably shouldn't be making that many Yakuza games all at once. I'm glad that, like, sure, okay, great, we got the remake of the classic one, but then we're also getting the sort of side story with Kiryu, but then we're also getting the next numbered like I don't is there an appetite for that much? Can we not spare someone for
I don't know. Like they've been making that many Yakuza games for a while, so there must be. Like this isn't new for Yakuza.
I worry that they're going to run that series into the ground, but also
I'm kind of Yakuza out right now too.
But in any case,
I don't know. I guess my point is I want to see integration between these things because I know that there's a lot of talent in different parts of Sega that would really benefit some of their games in other parts of Sega.
Yeah.
Also,
I see your point.
Yeah.
So going back to Creative Assembly, Sega basically said that that the cuts are happening because of an economic downturn due to inflation in Europe, and so they are adapting to these changes by making structural reforms after reviewing and developing games. And so that's why they canceled Hyenas and as well as some unannounced Sega of Europe projects. And they're doing a write-down for work-in-progress titles so that they're going to be doing tax write-offs for the unseen games from Sega Europe.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, this is the way it goes, isn't it? That basically, hey, we see more profit in being able to write these projects off than actually seeing them through to completion and paying staff to finish making them, which
at the very
sucks.
least, it does sound like this probably didn't affect their Japanese development, which means Jet Set Radio should be safe. Assuming that was a Japanese game.
I'm still not ready to assume that that's something that's ever going to see release. I know we diverge on this, but like it's the kind of thing where I will believe it when I see it and see more of it than, well, we have a concept video or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, see more than the footage that got leaked, I assume.
I mean, like, hey, between then and now, Sonic Frontiers came out, and nothing about this supposed Jet Set Radio game has. And in that time...
Well, yeah, but from that same video is Persona 3 Remake, which only just got revealed.
Yeah, but keep in mind, like we just discussed, Persona is largely on a different development track. Sega does marketing for them, but also I don't necessarily consider them to be... Like, I don't consider things being made at Sega to impact things happening at Atlus.
So...
Yeah.
I think that's all of the news that we had queued up.
It's all the news that's fit to print, except for things involving Frontiers.
Yeah.
Are you ready to...
The DLC came out. We're going to discuss it next month. I mean, next week. Yeah. So from here we move on to IDW.
Yeah. How do we want to talk about it? Starting with like the fun. We'll say make a sandwich. We'll start with the less pertinent stuff, get into actual plot, and then finish off with less pertinent stuff.
Yeah, that's how I have it structured in the notes.
Yep. We have starting off with Endless Summer and the 900th Adventure, and I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, you did read this stuff, right?
I read it. The issue is, I tend to not have a lot of strong opinions about...
Okay, good. All right. Just so long as you read it, because I made a big deal out of it this time.
Yeah.
But okay, so Endless Adventure is a very superfluous story. And that is what I like about it.
Yeah.
It is just Sonic and friends going on a beach day, and then having a little feud with the Babylon Rogues, competing with the Babylon Rogues to see who gets to stay on the beach, and then they ultimately decide, hey, let's just continue sharing the beach. And it's a fun story, lots of fun moments, and nice heart. And you know what? Like, that is exactly the kind of story I like to see come out of IDW every now and then.
And mostly focused on Jewel the Beetle.
She did play a pretty big role. I was basically just getting her to relax.
The Babylon Rogues is that's basically sports rivals. That's their made deals.
Yeah.
They're all sports rivals,
Yeah,
not really enemies
I
per se.
I think just where I fall with it is this kind of story. It's not as if Archie did not have this kind of story from time to time. It's just
Oh,
that,
they did, especially in their specials.
but more than anything, I would say I'm used to seeing this kind of story be like, hey, this is 5 pages long and it's as a B story to the main story. So you would just have like, hey, here's a fun
Yeah.
character moment for these to kind of stretch out the lack of story in this one for an entire issue is a bit much. Like you could fill the plot that actually the plot that actually happened here to like 5 pages.
Like, I don't know. For me, it's not always just about the plot. For sometimes the fun thing about stories like this is that you just kind of get to hang out with the characters for a little bit in their off days. And in IDW Sonic, you don't really get much of that. It's kind of it's kind of like disaster, story. You don't really get a whole lot of downtime. And this issue is just like all downtime. And I think just for a summer issue, I think that works pretty well. I like maybe not as like its own standalone comic. Like in the Archie days, this would have accompanied another like similarly sized story in a 48-page special or something. But for me, it kind of scratches one of the many itches that IDW has been leaving unscratched in terms of just having a smaller story where the characters just are themselves for a little while.
Let me put it in this language. I don't feel as good paying the same price for this as I do the other comics.
Yeah, I guess.
Like,
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's not much story for like a $6 special comic and such.
It's not that it's not much story, it's that like it is slight, it is without I guess if you want the visual treat, it's not bad. I kind of, for whatever reason, I dug seeing Storm in his tiny little shades, because every time it would come up in the art, I would be like, why are his eyes red? And then I have to remember, oh, because he's wearing sunglasses. And it would freak me out every time I would see it. It just feels, it's tough for getting this slight stuff without having it be attached to something a little bit more substantial. It's kind of the, it's the problem with having an annual, is that annuals are never part of what's going on in the comic that you're really into. It's usually just one big side story or an assortment of side stories that, in this case, I think the biggest issue I have is I was looking for maybe a little bit stronger character work. And it's kind of nice that Jewel was front and center for some of the character work, but by and large, there wasn't a lot of it.
All right.
Like, this is the drum that I will continue to beat for whenever I consider it in alignment with the two main series, the especially, we'll say Silver, between Silver and Whisper and Silver and Blaze in the core series. Like, I was hoping for something at least, a little bit more substantial in that light compared to, just we're having party to have party.
Either.
Yeah, like think of the character work
like
in Scrapnik Island.
Blaze and Sonic.
I'm sorry, Jason.
I do like the Sonic and Blaze just relaxing and such, but at the same time, Silver's backstory is I just didn't really care for it all.
Oh, well, I guess we'll get into that.
You're kind of getting ahead of things, Jason.
Sure,
we're not there yet.
There was that.
Where we were going.
Although I would also say I feel kind of similar to the 900th adventure. The 900th adventure that I liked Endless Summer more than I liked 900th Adventure.
Really?
I could not. It was weird, and I get that it was going for the same sort of, we're going to jump between different styles that represent different things of Sonic across different artists and eras, much in the same way that whenever we were talking about Rejuiced. I just felt that the story was nothing and kind of difficult to follow for it being nothing.
Really?
Were they trying to have this gem? Were they not trying to have that? Let's have Knuckles hold the gem. Let's have Metal Sonic. Like, what?
Sonic couldn't hold the gem for too long to avoid getting teleported. But things kept getting in the way, and they're trying to get the gem back to where it's supposed to be in the world.
It felt like a bunch of things just happening, cuz.
Oh, I mean...
Which,
I mean, that tell you there.
That is the real plot. Like, a bunch of things, like, what? Why was the killer whale there? I don't know. It was just sort of there. Why was Amy somewhat...
Because it got teleported
Why was Amy weirdly regressive in her character development? I don't know, just cuz. I don't know. It was weird to try to follow. I didn't really get any meaningful amount of story with it. I did not care for it.
All right.
It felt messy. It felt messy, and it felt like the same issue I had with the Metal Virus arc, where it just felt like, let's squeeze as many characters as we can in order to squeeze in as many characters as we can. Not because it makes sense with a whole lot of story, but because we need to show all the characters, because we need to have all the characters, because the characters are important, and we need to have all of them.
Well, I don't know. Like, for me... Like, again, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I guess the teleportation stuff just confused you. I don't know. Like, I thought it was pretty easy to follow. Like, it was just Sonic getting teleported to different parts of the world and trying to get the stone back to where it's supposed to be. And he needed to pass it on to his friends, because if he didn't, the energy would build up in him. He'd get teleported somewhere else. So, like, I don't know,
what did
like,
it?
As far as a one-shot story, as far as one-shot stories with no relevance to the larger comic book plot go, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything major out of it. Just a fun little read.
But what did it have to do with it being the 900th adventure? Like, when you say, oh, it's the 900th adventure, as if that's a thing, which they also did in the story itself, it comes with an expectation of, like, no, we're gonna celebrate the fact that Sonic has been through all of this other stuff. And no, it's just, we're gonna take him around and draw him in a bunch of different art styles and have him interact with a bunch of different characters. Like, it just didn't feel like...
And also had
anything to do with the premise.
It also involved a bunch of different writers, including, of course, most notably Nigel Kitching from Sonic the Comic, who handled the bit with Metal Sonic, as I recall. And I don't know, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is amazing or anything. Like, I certainly do kind of prefer the lower stakes annuals to this, but as sort of just a fun adventure that a bunch of different writers and artists got to work on. Like, I don't know, to me, it just took me back to the Archie days, where occasionally they could do larger stories like this. Just IDW doesn't tend to.
I mean, you're saying IDW doesn't tend to, but we're talking about 3 of them in the same span of time. Like,
this is the only like modern Sonic one shot that they've released that is just one continuous storyline. Everything else is typically either shorter, like Endless Summer, or a bunch of different stories like the annual.
I mean, Endless Summer takes up a whole comic. Like, it's not as if it's just one.
But it's not as long as this, is my point. But regardless, that's the wrong detail to focus on. Like I don't know, I don't like have anything strong to say negative or positive about this, aside from the fact that I guess thought it was a fun adventure that was easy to follow. But I certainly don't get the negativity.
Let me put it this way: the fact that I
this.
have very little to say negative or positive about it, to me, is the negativity. Like, the fact that I don't have a strong, meaningful opinion of it just means that, like, I was bored. Like, it bored me. Like, I wasn't going through it thinking, oh, it's like, at most I would say, oh, I am enjoying the new art in this, and that's kind of the extent of it. I don't give a crap that, oh, I have to pass it to someone else or I get teleported, because that it wasn't interesting. It didn't really tell me anything interesting about the characters. It didn't really set up any interesting scenarios. It just felt like it felt like another of the 3 anime filler arcs that I had to read in a day.
Well, unfortunately, I did not review. This was not one of the comics I reviewed recently, so I'm not going to be able to offer a much stronger rebuttal than what I've already said. So,
like, I don't disagree with, like, I'm not mad at it. I'm not, like, deeply upset by it. I'm just thinking, like, IDW's putting out more comics now than a while, in part because I'm guessing they want to double down on the parts of their industry that is, or the parts of their business that are doing pretty well. But if it means that we're...
This and Ninja Turtles, the constant spin-offs, constant little specials.
But you've said it, but you've said it yourself. The stuff that people like you and I are looking for are things like an analog to Sonic Universe, where we're getting the stories that are still pertinent to the ongoing series, but are still in this but are still, like, they're not these small... okay, I'm gonna step back. Breathe. I would rather them take the effort that they're putting towards these small, special promotional things and put them towards something that could build. I would, rather than seeing an Endless Summer and a 900th Adventure and an Amy's 30th Anniversary, I would much rather see something along the lines of another Scrapnik Island.
Well, look, to me, look, it's not really, it's almost certainly not an either or with IDW. Like, going by what Ian Flynn has said, a long-term Sonic Universe-like spin-off for IDW simply isn't really on the table right now.
Sure.
Someone is saying no to that, and so instead we get stuff like this. And when you release things like a one-shot, you cannot, like, you cannot really make that important to the larger storyline, and so it's effectively going to be its own little standalone comic. And for me, what both of these comics do is, like, I think this is where you and I differ. Where by and large, like, I don't mind a couple of storylines that let me just, like, see the characters just being themselves for a bit, without necessarily giving us any kind of deeper insight, without introducing some plot revelations, especially in a series like this, where you're not really going to get stuff like that for these characters because they are ultimately immutable.
I'm going to clarify for...
Like, there's only so many ways you can really explore them or do new things with them within these restrictions. Okay, explain what you're going to...
It's not that I feel like I need to have a pivotal plot point in them, but I need to see stronger character work than these small, frivolous things happening. Like, yes, it's good that... It was... The best part of the Endless Summer one was... basically the ending, whenever they leaned more into, and I'm already forgetting her name. Why is it? Jewel, thank you. That they leaned into, well, this is about Jewel. This story was about that. Because most of it was not. Most of it was just a bunch of scenes about that. I'm not saying it has to be plot-centric, but it does have to at least be a bit more character-centric. It does have to... It does have to, like, lean into the relationships between characters, even if they don't change in a meaningful way. Like, that's what I want to see out of a series. If Sonic's going to be a series about the characters, then it needs to lean into the fact that the characters are characters.
Now, I think the character work in this is fine, but I also... But I also do believe that IDW has long had limitations in regards to its character work, period, which is that it is a action comic book for children, and they seem to think that that means that they need to pack in a ton of action all of the time, which limits how much you can necessarily do with character work unless it's like character work that is intertwined with the action, which is you can certainly do, but like it does kind of limit the kind of character stuff you can do, at least in my opinion. But for me, like, you know, I really loved seeing the whole Blaze sequence. I just really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the interaction Sonic, Blaze, and Cream had with one another throughout the entire sequence. IDW's done better, and they can certainly do better than what we've seen here. But I think it's still fun. I think it's still good character work in the context of what IDW Sonic has been doing for the past few years. It doesn't touch Archie, but Archie was a completely different beast, and like, I don't know. For me, IDW really has some pretty massive problems, which we'll probably be getting into in a bit later.
My stance just generally is seeing this worries me about having about them over relying on the novelty issues, which, I mean,
I don't think they're going to be doing that every year. I'm pretty sure that we're getting so many novelty issues this year because we're not getting a miniseries. And it's basically what's the word? Making up for that.
I would have rather had a mini-series, and whether or not someone in the business is saying yes or no to that, my stance is I would have rather had that.
Normally, I would share that opinion, but I've already talked about how sometimes I do just like seeing the characters in low-stakes situations, and we're going to be getting more of that with the Halloween and holiday one-shots.
We sure
which
are,
I'm also looking forward to.
So to go on the other end of the spectrum, when I'm talking about, like, character work, I'm talking about things like the primary IDW issues. And it's not, and yeah, some of it is plot-centric, like the interactions between Whisper and Silver, in sort of the way that they've kind of collaborated in the infiltration. I guess this is like some sort of infiltration mini-series, or mini arc, or whatever you would call it, where Mimic has, under the employ of Clutch, tasked him to sort of infiltrate the Diamond Cutters / the what's the term that I'm...
Restoration.
The Restoration, and just sort of like combination subterfuge / act as spy for him. Like, number one, my first statement is I like Clutch. I think Clutch is a great character. I think Sonic needs more low stakes enemies.
Yeah.
I don't think the series has enough of that, and I always love an organized crime villain.
My feeling has long been that IDW is desperately lacking in, like, B villains, but I also don't really think they'd have much room for them until we get a second spin-off series. So I mean, I guess for now, Clutch will do. Clutch is good.
Clutch is good, but like Clutch lays it out in the first issue of this arc, where it's like he sets out like what the factions of this world are, and it's like there's the Restoration, who I didn't really think of as a faction until this issue, whenever he brought it up as such. There's the Eggman Empire, whatever you want to call it, and there's his sort of underground crime syndicate, completely air quotes legitimate business of stealing egg tech under the guise of being a cleanup crew.
Which, I mean, when you think about it, like, that is an interesting bit of world building. You never really think about, like, how they recover from Eggman's many
unless you've watched a
efforts.
Unless you've watched a Marvel movie or read Marvel comics, in which its case it's like, oh no, this is an actual thing that they are slightly cribbing
but,
from.
like,
but
you're not used to seeing this kind of stuff in Sonic's world, is my point.
Sure. But yeah, like, the character work that I'm liking in this is, and this isn't even core to the plot, because the stuff between Sonic and Blaze, that's the character work I like. I
enjoyed that as well. It was nice seeing them hang out, but my issue with the Sonic Blaze backstory is that it really just kind of reminded me of what one of IDW's big problems is, and that is just how empty the world feels. Because, here they are running through Spagonia, talking about, like, the city, taking the Sykes, and it's like, the entire town is just empty.
It's,
you get no sense of anything living here. It's just a level.
I'm wondering if there's, like, an edict there that they can't make people. Like, I don't...
Like, I am sure that, like, part of this is just that, we can't have humans.
We really need to have humans in this for it to make sense.
But,
we've already had a Tales tube where it says humans live in cities, the talking animal people live in islands.
And they directly refer to characters.
While I'm enjoying Sonic and Blaze, just talking about the Blaze seeing the world and stuff, I'm thinking, man, they're talking about, like, how wondrous Sonic's world is, and I'm just remembering all these tiny villages and empty vistas, and, like, one of the things I'll always love about Archie is that, like, you got, like, even when the comic book was really bad, like, they always made an effort to, like, have cultures, to have cities, to have, like, make the world feel like a world.
Yeah,
which is just, none of that is happening here. Like, even, like, the most bare bones version of it.
Let's be real, this is the complaint that we've always had for IDW.
Yeah, but, like, it just, like, was highlighted super well in that backstory, and it really just feels like one of the biggest limitations of this comic book at this point.
But okay, if I take that out of the equation, then what I'm still left with is good interactions between Sonic and Blaze, which immediately follow good interactions between Blaze and Silver. Like, the Blaze and Silver stuff is fantastic. And then it ends on the point of Silver making the comment about Sonic. And this is what I
gotta dig that up.
Yeah, this is what I kind of think that needs to happen, is, like, Sonic as a character tends to be treated as, like, oh, he's great, he's the hero, he's everything. And this is especially true in the games, where, like, Sonic is just treated as can do no wrong. I think I feel like there needs to be characters that just find Sonic annoying that aren't inherently Shadow, like,
or Surge. Which,
yeah,
like, I mean, but like she's just an outright villain. Of
I'm
course.
looking for characters
I
to have a
with
complicated relationship with Sonic. It's one of the.
I don't think that's really allowed to exist here. Is kind of part of the problem.
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
I pitch this to many people and get pushback all the time on it, and it goes back to my attitude towards Sonic Lost World.
I thought you were going to say Sonic Prime for a second there.
Here's the thing. Sonic Prime does it better. it does it de facto better. Like,
yes, it does. Like, Sonic genuinely has character flaws here, and really annoys certain fans.
But the reason why I point to Sonic Lost World is, if we look into the dynamics between, like, what Sonic Lost World shows us as characters, is that the relationship between Sonic and Tails is Sonic has a lot of trust for Tails to do what Sonic says. Sonic has trust to, like... Sonic expects, like, a one-way trust, whether he understands that or not. And where that comes with friction is Sonic screws up, he breaks this horn thing and causes chaos, and basically decides to take lead of, okay, the solution to this is to follow what Dr. Eggman says. Meanwhile, while Tails, you can see it as jealousy or whatever, but Tails is someone who, he understands, hey, I'm a smart guy, I know what the heck I'm doing, I have ideas on how we can move forward on this, listen to what I am saying. And
yeah,
I like that character work because it shows, like, hey, these are the problems with Sonic.
Like, the actual writing for Lost World, I can still argue, is bad.
It's not it's not great.
Certainly, I agree with you in the sense that yes, like they at least had a very good idea here that they just executed poorly.
Yeah, and then we get into Sonic Prime, where that's represented in a more direct way, where Sonic's just, again, to highlight the fact, Sonic's biggest personality flaw in his relationship with Tails is he has a one-way sense of trust, which is to say, he just sort of expects Tails to trust what he's doing and go along with it without really paying attention to, well, what does Tails think? Well, what does Tails want? And that creates the friction that ultimately leads to our part 3 with 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically made 9 the antagonist in that kind of way.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting dynamic, and it's an interesting dynamic that they don't always lean into, but that's also the kind of dynamic that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the characters to have... Do you mind if I go into one other tangent? I apologize.
Sure, go ahead.
I get into...
I would like to have dinner soon.
Yeah, I get into fights on the Discord about the nature of Sonic lore versus Sonic story. And Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 are very built around what their lore is, are built around the things that happened in the past. But what they are not interested in are how the characters as they currently are dealing with that, internalizing that, reacting to that.
Oh, yeah.
It's
like,
just...
we barely see Knuckles react at all to seeing his whole, like, past laid before him.
There's...
like, answers all his questions, he's all like, huh, okay.
And that's... And you would think that if this story is about the events surrounding Tikal and Chaos and things that happened so many years ago, you would have characters feel a certain way about that or react in a certain way about that. But no, you just get these weird vignettes that they experience and then come back to real life for and be like, that was sure weird. Let's go get Eggman. Let's go stop that. Like, what would be the actual point of sending Gamma back in time? Like, what was the actual value of that? Gamma doesn't care. Gamma's only has, like, one highlight is like, okay, I understand freedom now. Time to go kill my brothers. Give them freedom.
Freedom through death.
And that, I guess I'm saying all that with the context of, like, I am looking for Sonic characters to have relationships to things that happen, to care or think about things that happen, because that's how you have good writing. That's how you build good characters and build a good world. You don't do it through Sonic Force's, hey, remember when this thing happened? No, you do it by, you know, having characters feel ways about things. which
Yeah,
they
which
also
Sonic
tried to do in
Frontiers
Sonic
did
Frontiers. No, they did.
Problem is the comic
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Jason.
Sonic, the official Sega Sonic characters aren't really allowed to have much growth. It has to be from all these side characters created for the comic are the only ones who can have growth.
But the games can give them
The
growth.
Sonic characters,
Like,
Now, I do want to kind of go back to, like, yeah, okay. So the games are allowed to give the Sonic characters growth, which we saw with Frontiers, but the comics, as a side medium, generally are not. Like, even in the Archie days,
I will point you to that Silver and Blaze exchange and disagree that there apparently are certain places where they can give them an amount of growth. I'm not saying that it has to be like
I would
permanent,
argue
but
that they are both benefiting from the fact that they barely existed in the games in like more than a decade, and back then their characterization was very inconsistent. And what we're seeing right now is probably them getting established for what they'll eventually be when they finally return to the video games proper.
I hope. Well, we say that, but then also consider the discussions made around Shadow as a character that we talked about in the last podcast, in just the ways that they have kind of loosened up, or at least be willing to give Shadow much more in the way of actual motivation versus I'm angry because Shadow. I don't know. I want to see more of. I want to see those character interactions, even if it's not like, hey, this has dramatically changed this character. Just the understanding of, like, this is the kind of character that this is. This is the other kind of character this other character is. Let's see how they interact in a meaningful way beyond superhero crap.
So going back to what you said about a character not liking Sonic being like something you'd like to see, we do get that with Silver in this arc.
Yeah.
Which, I'm getting like some eerie vibes of like Metal Virus or the Surge arc, where like I'm really digging the build up. I'm really digging the early stuff that they're doing, but I'm afraid it's like just like all gonna just come to nothing. Because at the moment, I'm really enjoying this story arc. Because
I'm having some issues with the story arc in that the way Lanolin's just completely non-believing anything Silver's saying as far as duo goes. When
I mean, she doesn't know Silver, and what she does know of Silver is that he's a screw up.
Yes, but there is also the extremely simple solution of politely asking Duo to take off his gloves, being that. Because, he's got the suction cup under his gloves.
I will...
And that would instantly solve that problem.
I mean, I don't know. Does anyone actually know that he has suction... That he would have suction cups under his gloves? Like,
yes,
Whisper. Does anyone know that?
Whisper.
Does Whisper...
Talking
are we sure Whisper knows that?
Yes.
When has she mentioned or seen anything in regards to a suction cup?
She's worked with Raj for years, so she would know that.
But that doesn't mean she knows the limitations of his shape-shifting abilities.
So okay. I want to get back. I want to get back to this because what we're talking about is a plot hole, and
yeah, ultimately I don't care. But so for me, I'm really enjoying just Silver trying to this two-part story of Silver trying to get into the Diamond Cutters, trying to work with Whisper, who he's a big fan of, and ultimately not really finding his place and kind of getting kicked out by Mimic, who miraculously manages to avoid getting called, which, I really thought, okay, so are they ending the Mimic storyline already? How do they get around this? And so oh, he does something that even Whisper wouldn't expect him to do. Okay. I guess he's just that devoted to his job right now or something.
And the ultimate way that I keep pointing back to the interaction with Blaze, it's the understanding that, yes, I screwed up. Is the solution going to be taking this big action, or continuing to follow with it in small ways? And ultimately, maybe we should continue to follow it in small ways, which I feel fits very well with a ongoing story like this.
And I think we never actually did discuss 63. But one thing I will at least say this one. Oh wait, no, yes, we talked about last time. Never mind.
Covering 63 and 64 is, are two-parter. They're kind of together.
Yeah. 63 was the whole training storyline for the Diamond Cutters. But yeah, so like ultimately, I'm really enjoying the storyline as it is. I'm enjoying how they're dealing with Silver and the Diamond Cutters. My big worry is that we're gonna get to the end. There's gonna be a big climax, and like I'm not gonna feel any impact because nothing has fundamentally changed. And so I guess we'll just see. Like hopefully IDW will be able to do a bit more at that point. I don't know.
Well, there's certainly two ways it could go. Effectively, Mimic being part of this, it becomes an ongoing thing. It's hard to say. If they're willing to let it continue for a bit, I feel like they could at least build to a pretty strong crescendo. It just depends on structurally what they're allowed to do. Like, are they allowed to, let this redefine the world for a little bit, or is it going to have to wrap up within a certain amount of issues? And
well, we do know that Mimic is going to be there for at least a few months, because looking forward, like it's mostly a bunch of smaller stories from here on out.
Okay, yeah, like this is,
and Mimic is in the background for all the restoration stuff.
Okay, so yeah, if this continues to become a thing, like, hey, I am looking forward to the idea that you could have a small ongoing story within your larger story. It's something that IDW doesn't tackle all that much. Well,
yeah.
I take that back, because actually they are tackling it in the form of Silver. Silver has an ongoing story as to why he is there, and building on top of that. I will give them this. I think their use of Silver has generally been pretty good, and this is coming from someone who, thinks that Silver is kind of a wiener based on his use in games.
Like, as far as like Archie Silver, I will always love. But as far as game Silver goes, he got a major glow up in IDW, I think, especially more recently.
I mean, IDW in some ways they kind of do lean into, some Silver, he's strong, but also he's kind of a wiener, and we're gonna use that, much in the same way that frickin' Jet is an absolute piece of S, and they lean into, Jet sucks. Look at all these things. Look at all these stories we have with Jet. Yeah, Jet sucks. That's part of his character. I don't know.
So we should probably move on to the 30th anniversary issue.
Sure.
And like, I've always enjoyed the classic storylines. Of course, it really makes me wish we could get a classic comic book already. Out of all of the ones we've gotten, this is probably my least favorite. Like, I definitely did.
Sticks. That was cute.
I think this is another one where I think, like, hey, what if instead of having this big, long Amy story, you fit like 2 or 3 smaller ones? Like, I don't think there's enough happening in this story to really justify it being as long, which is the same issue I had with Endless Summer, that, like, this is not a full comic's worth for a story. This is like, maybe you could tell smaller stories and just have them much in the same way that you do in the annual. I get
one thing that kind of surprised me about this is that, like, there's this whole like subplot about like Robotnik like gathering fruit or whatever, but then nothing's ever revealed about that. Like, I assume he's gonna gonna go to the island. He's like, I don't know, building some giant robot fruit cake or something. But no, he just arrives and like. We just get to the island, which is completely made out of robots, and everyone got captured. They fight Metal Sonic and they win. And again, like it was an enjoyable read for me. But yeah, like Probably something might have been better done as a bunch of smaller stories instead, I suppose.
Yes, I agree with that.
My favorite
Is it
part
the-
was seeing Eggbots in sailor suits.
My favorite part was seeing Amy, Bark, and Ray together, because we have not gotten that pairing, because that's a neat pairings. I like seeing Amy with Bark without like the bad influence of Fang or Bean. So are we talking about One
She
Piece?
mentioned before in the comics that she thinks Bark is basically a good person that's just under a bad influence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get to One Piece because I really want to wrap this up now.
Okay.
It's been late for me.
So, One Piece live action. I don't think any of us were expecting what we got.
No, I was very anxious. I liked what I was seeing visually. They somehow, by God, Netflix adapted an anime into live action, and it's good.
Yes, and it's like the one that should have been the least well suited for it.
Yes! Like, how can you screw up a Death Note? Death
How
Note
can you
writes
screw
its...
up Cowboy Bebop?
Well, Cowboy Bebop, there's a lot of ways that you could screw it up, but like, oh, how...
But yeah, Death Note, I guess, is a better example because it's just a guy writing letters, writing names in a notebook. Yeah, there's a Shinigami that's like one CG character.
But like, they made a live-action Death Note. I watched that film, and it was kind of okay.
But yeah, like ultimately, what the series is to me, it's like it's kind of a dulled, toned down version of One Piece. And like when I say dulled, I mean it doesn't hit quite the same emotional highs.
One Piece is always at a 12, and this is like maybe at an 8.
Yes, like you don't have Garp, who is in this just like walking through walls. You don't like everything is toned down, including the emotional stakes, which kind of does make this definitely an inferior version of One Piece. But what this does, this is probably the best case we've ever gotten for doing a live action adaptation of anything. Because what this does is it makes One Piece accessible.
Yes.
It makes One Piece a thing that my septuagenarian parents can watch, really like, in the case of my mom, like, may have been both, I don't know. And like now they know who the Straw Hats are. They know who Arlong is. They know about the Baratier. They know about all the characters' backstories. It's like they made almost all of the right cuts where they need to do. They did all the right tonal things where they need to do it. Like
they did stuff where they would normally be afraid to do, but went ahead and went through with it with like the transponder scales and such.
Yeah. Which I'll be honest, when I first saw them, I thought they were ugly. I still kind of think that they're ugly.
Oh, they are ugly.
I mean,
but they're great.
Like
they're great now. Ugly they are.
I think it's just a core part of the show's tone now, and it's wild the line that they were walking throughout this entire thing, where they made it cartoony, but not too cartoony. They made it goofy and kind of stupid, but not too goofy, not too stupid. They made it where it can just barely work as a live action show. And like I think One Piece owes a lot to the CW Arrowverse, because I've seen one person compare this to Arrowverse, and upon watching it, I completely agree with him, because Arrowverse, it is also a very it's a very goofy selection of shows. Like Flash is very goofy. It asks you to take some very goofy things very seriously. And so like One Piece, it doesn't go as serious as Arrowverse, obviously, but it does still ask you to take all of these kind of silly concepts and ideas at face value, and all this emotional stuff. It's very sincere. It wants you to buy into all of that. And that's ultimately what makes it work.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, the only time they really try to lampshade anything is the joke about Luffy announcing his attacks. But even then, they don't really stop doing it. Like, they absolutely still lean into it.
Even Buggy does
It is basically a character moment for. It's basically a character moment for Zoro because like Usopp does it, Sanji does it, Nami doesn't, but like Nami and Zoro have always been the more serious Straw Hats.
Even
so,
then, like, Nami
sense.
doesn't have attacks to announce at that point in the series. She really doesn't develop
that
those until much later.
And I think by Alabasta, we're gonna have everyone announcing their attack moves. Like Zoro is going to do it. It's probably gonna be a highlighted moment. And it is the same to me that we are gonna be getting live action Alabasta. Like we're gonna be getting Tony Chopper. And I have no idea how they're going to do that, but they're going to do it.
They're going to find a way. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see, because One Piece, like, here's the thing. Chopper is not the most ridiculous thing in the series. Like,
oh, no.
There's going, like, the thing you have to understand about One Piece, if you've never watched it, is One Piece is about a bunch of different just kinds of guys. Like, Chopper is an anthropomorphic reindeer because he was a reindeer that ate a fruit that turned him human. But in the same time, we're also going to be dealing with giants. We've already seen fishmen, which I think their version of fishmen was pretty good. Like, you could tell the costuming was kind of cheesy, but also it was cheesy in a way that perfectly.
Hachan, because
they did
too expensive, I think.
They did the fisherman really good with the makeup. Like, it really does kind of show just how far makeup has come. Because, like a lot of TV shows, when they use makeup, they can go really far. But like you really saw it with the fisherman. And like, now, obviously, there are limitations, like in terms of in terms of what they can render and the characters they can include. Because, of course, we did not get Hakushi. There was no Hakushi, which like an 8-armed octopus swordsman. Like, no crap, you weren't getting Hakushi.
I might also argue that in terms of the themes that they were going for in this set of episodes, Hachi might not have been the best. We'll say he might not have fit with what they were going for. And
like one thing that kind of surprised me at the Fishman Island arc is they go really hard on like all the racism stuff.
Yeah, like they
against the fishmen.
They don't actually like. It's safe to say, like, they touch on things that don't necessarily come up in the early part of the series like that. That the way that fishmen are approached is not necessarily just the world government racism towards them, but also the fact that there was a point in time in which they were just the slave class of people.
Yeah. Which, that wasn't really touched upon until like the Fishman Island arc, like at the halfway point of the series.
Yeah.
And so like it makes a lot of sense for them to just introduce that now, because like it does lend a lot to Arlong's motivations. It does kind of let us feel for him a little bit, even though he's still like he's still the big villain of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, and what they did with Arlong, they really do kind of do throughout the series.
I did like how they built him up this time, so just how he's a part of this one arc, in the final 2 episodes.
Do you remember
coming along
on the same note? And I will let you go, Alex, in a bit. But do you remember how they introduced Zoro?
Yes.
They did not introduce him in the way that they introduced him. In fact, they introduced him in a way that the anime only ever talks about, which is to say, they pit him against a member of Baroque Works, which is not something that you will encounter until the next season. But yeah, that I think that's an actual really solid way to introduce that character before you get to the what is it, Orange Island? Is it Orange Island?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh no, never mind.
Wait, no. It was Axan Morgan's thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't Orange Island was the one with Buggy, I think.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't remember the name of the island, but it wasn't Orange.
Marine base.
Marine base, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I have another point, but I will wait.
But like, man, what was I gonna say? You know what? You go on.
I like, speaking of Axan Morgan.
Oh, sorry. Now I remember. The action sequence that they introduced Zero with was also really good.
Oh,
like,
yes.
That whole sequence was just really impressively choreographed.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like action movie level of choreograph, but in terms of TV quality, it was very impressive.
Okay, now you can go.
Okay. No. I basically, I was going to go with Axan Morgan. I like the ways that they have changed some of the characters. The idea that like Axan Morgan was not driven mad by his own power, but rather like, no, he's just extremely egotistical and
yeah. He's just an arsehole.
I like one of my favorite moments of it is just the way that
you like that over him being abusive to his own Marines and everything, which kind of makes him look, more evil, more tougher.
In the space where they also have Garp as a continuous force, I think it makes a lot more sense. For the type of character, I think that, like I said, One Piece always takes everything to 12. If you're going to have it be at 8, that makes a lot of sense as an 8, and it like sets up a much more interesting character than weird, I am crazy, I will go mad while I'm unconscious. No, I'm thinking of Don Krieg. But yeah, I think it works for the type of character that he is. I think it's a change that works for the much smaller scope of this in terms of how long the episodes are. Maybe the exception I might have is I kind of like anime Buggy more than I like this not quite the Joker.
Yeah, this one's
I love this Buggy. I love the way
I like him too, but I definitely do prefer the Buggy from the anime just in terms of his characterization.
I think the only other live action character I think is even better than the anime would be Dracula Mihawk and his introduction. Helmeppo too, yeah. The Dracula Mihawk and his introduction of just slicing that ship in half. And Don Krieg said even an issue. It shows just how powerful he is just before he even arrives.
Speaking of things better than the anime, I'm probably going to catch some flack from this, not necessarily from you guys, but from someone out there. But I think the one place where this thing did better, it was the Syrup Village arc. And I say this specifically because I was never a huge fan of Syrup Village in the original anime. I found the pacing to be pretty terrible, the set pieces to not be memorable. Whereas, like, here, like, yes, we lose Shengo, which sucks. But, again, I do think he was a necessary cut to keep the storyline focused.
Sure.
And I think that making it focus on the mansion, making it focused on Kaya, keeping Kaya active throughout the plot, was on the whole
making it into a bit of a horror story.
Yes, and also and also giving it a horror angle.
But it's supposed to be Usopp's arc, and it really feels like Zoro's backstory kind of robbed Usopp of that. Usopp didn't really get that much of a heroic moment outside of doing one slingshot that didn't.
For me, Usopp's heroic moment was. For me, Usopp's heroic moment was staying by Kaya and trying to fight Kuro at the end. Like, Usopp is not necessarily a character that got that many heroic moments before he took out a Fishman in One Piece.
Right. I would say, yeah, it even if he doesn't have the air quotes heroic moment, it is still a good character moment. And funny enough, they actually set up okay, this is a romantic relationship between these characters. We're not going to dance around that.
What I like about that is then when, spoiler alert, for anyone who hasn't watched the anime, when, the Mary event, they have to disband the Mary eventually because of all the repairs on the ship and everything too much. That makes his fight with, Luffy mean that much more because
Yep.
it was, not just Mary's ship, it was the ship his girlfriend gave him and everything.
But on the whole, though, I agree with most of the cuts that they made. And I especially agree with them just kicking Don Krieg out altogether. Because he was always my least favorite part of the East Blue, my least favorite villain. And, like, I'm kind of glad that, hey, instead Mihawk got more of a focus and Arlong got more of a build-up.
I like that arc in terms of introducing or really honing down who Luffy is through an outside observer. But I will 100% agree, you don't necessarily need, you don't need Don Krieg to do that.
Yeah. And so, on the whole, I'm just really looking forward to where they take this show now. And, oh my god, sorry, go on.
One of the things that means is some of the original writing in this is shockingly so well done. Like the conversation between Zeph and Garp.
Oh, that moment was so good.
Oh,
Luffy's when Zoro gets nearly killed from Mihawk, and Luffy realizes, oh my god, this is actually serious. This isn't just fun and adventure, and he gets so worried about Zoro's health and those scenes. I love that. And then of course, as soon as he revives, he's hugging him and raising his arm and almost reopening his injuries like the idiot he is.
But like, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I think that's about it for what I was gonna say. And of course the bits with Garp and Kobe were surprisingly decent too. It gave a little side story where they're seeing how both sides are.
When I realized they were giving Kobe his own subplot, I was really happy. It did not disappoint me. Like, that is definitely the best change that they made to this whole thing, was just making Kobe an ongoing force.
It made his friendship with Helmeppo seem so much more, natural.
God, I love that too. Helmeppo got character development throughout this whole thing, and like everything about Kobe and Helmeppo, I guess, love. And the case has been made that Garp is the most out of character in this. I feel inclined to agree with that, at least to an extent.
Yes, but
very
also
subdued, but at the same time, he's still Garp.
Yeah, he is still Garp.
The best way I could kind of envision it is he feels like Garp if Garp is trying to repress Garp. Which is to say, whenever nobody's looking, he's still doing all the things that you expect him to do. He's still eating obscene amounts of food. He's still able to throw a cannonball. He's still...
I loved it. I loved it when he just ate all that meat.
I think my favorite part was you walk in and you don't see him do it. It cuts away. But then when it cuts back, he has just thrown a destructive tantrum about the situation where everything in the room is like, oh, no, this is the character that I know.
Like, I guess just like everything else, they did tone him down. They probably just toned him down a little more so that he could kind of exist as this more serious and antagonistic force for Luffy. Now, the one thing that this show did best above anything else was its focus on dreams.
Mm-hmm.
When they started talking about dreams, when Luffy started talking about dreams like he does, oh my god, they've really got it. They have nailed One Piece's core thesis here.
Yeah, down to the point where the crisis of faith is on Kobe to kind of determine, is this the path that I actually believe in? What can I do about that? And that is kind of what basically what his character develops as he goes through, he begins to question what's going on in the military, and
Once he learns about the warlords and stuff, puts those seeds of doubt.
Yep.
but also it doesn't necessarily mean, well, I'm not going to pursue this, up to the point where Garp says, yes, this is what you should be doing based on what you've seen. Like,
And
learning
sorry.
basically him coming to understand that it's not about being part of the Navy, it's about following what justice you believe in.
Right.
And like in terms of
go ahead.
in terms of dreams, like, and like another thing Luffy did was like he refused to stand in the way of Zoro fighting Mihawk, which is a very Luffy thing to do, because as I recall, like the Mihawk stuff in the manga happened, like it just happened immediately. Like, there was no time to talk about it or think about it. It just happened. But here, like, Nami and Usopp trying to get Luffy to make Zoro not do it. He's all like, I can't stand in front of his dreams. And it's like, yes. And like that is exactly what Luffy would do. And this Luffy is definitely more heroic. He's like, they symbolize some of the more moral aspects of One Piece in this. They did make the characters more heroic. They did make the morality a little less ambiguous, which again plays into making this more mainstream friendly,
while also still being able to preserve what those characters are meant to represent. Like,
yeah,
because Luffy will just say, "I'm a different kind of pirate than that." He technically feels he's a pirate, but he also believes in freedom for everyone.
Yeah, and like I said, like the characters still stand for what they're supposed to stand for, which I think it's pretty good to be able to both make a character rather different, put them in a very different scenario, but then also have them follow the same themes that you expect them to follow. It's kind of why whenever you look at other successful remakes in this era of, well, we can only remake things, it's so difficult to really make new things. It's like, well, the thing that separates the good stuff from the bad stuff is, okay, do you understand what this is supposed to mean? Not just like what the iconography is, but like who does these characters stand, what do these characters stand for? And if you can capture that,
yes,
like,
this is why,
yeah,
it's why those other anime, those live action animes failed, is they focused more on style than they did on the characters and themes going into it.
Or in Dragon Ball Evolution's case, like, I guess the brand?
Dragon Ball Evolution doesn't care. The problem is, like, Dragon Ball Evolution is like an example of we do not care, and in some ways are actively embarrassed by what this thing is. We're just going to make a movie. And
One Piece, though, definitely not embarrassed.
No, One Piece embraces it and finds ways to sort of either make it palatable or not draw attention to it and just say, this is part of the world, just go accept it.
And, like, I think, and like, ultimately, like, in terms of the world, like, the sets are really impressive. The Baratier looks superb.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a reason why they went back to that again after everyone left the restaurant. Like, you want to eat here.
The only exception I might say is number one, I'm guessing to kind of hide some of the ends that they would have to cut. There are a lot of scenes that would have otherwise been outdoors that are now indoors. A lot of fights in particular.
Like everything to do with
Buggy,
Buggy
Circus,
and
like I agree. I approve of them setting stuff in the mansion because, like I said, like in the original, all like just took place on, like, I don't know, this one bit of coastline,
and a lot of places that are towns are more in the, I will say, Pirates of the Caribbean vision of like what a town is.
Yeah.
Like, there's not houses in the same way that One Piece has a lot of houses. It's just a lot of, like, ramshackle shanties.
or in the case of Usopp, it's like, I don't know, a bunch of like townhouses or something. But like, I think the biggest downgrade we got was probably was Orange Town and Buggy, because basically the whole thing took place in a circus tent. Wasn't a huge fan of that aesthetic. We briefly saw the town, of course, but they like really cut down on that arc. Like the dog that played such a big role in the original arc is just
And the poodle
gets
guy,
like
he's still there.
like
But
yeah, the pool guy is still there. He's the only character who kind of carries over. The lion's gone. The dog is just a regular dog that shows up for 2 seconds. But like to me, that was like kind of the point where the show kind of felt at its smallest and most limited versus what the manga did.
I was honestly, I think even barring all of that, I think the part that just bugged me was I liked loud, obnoxious Buggy, and what we got here was Dark Knight Joker Buggy, and I did not love that part.
I wouldn't call him Dark Knight Joker Buggy.
Dark Knight Joker, no,
like-
he's still humorous, and
he
kind of a
tries to be
snarky,
humorous.
egotistical
He's
jerk.
still very loud and annoying.
No, he
But
tries to. No,
I
he
do
has
feel
like
like-
a weird. I am an artist. I am doing craft here, and that's Buggy. I don't consider a character who would ever know
Yeah.
or understand having a craft. He's just, to me, he is a clown not because of any meaningful reason, but just because he's weird. I guess.
Because he was born with a big,
he's also
ugly
born
nose.
with that big red nose.
And finally, the fighting choreography was surprisingly, I think, pretty good for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
I'm shocked at how good Luffy's rubber stuff. Okay, I don't know about good, but it wasn't off-putting.
No.
Like, it worked.
It was TV good.
No, because it was
Like, I was
yeah,
so
it was
terrified it was
it
going to be...
It was on brand. Everything fit. And, nothing really felt like it didn't belong. I mean,
Yeah.
even the transponder snails, which were obviously little Muppets because their mouths just moved up and down.
I
like that.
really loved the
fun.
Mihawk fight. It was a really good fight. Like, just, like seeing him fight Zoro with that tiny little knife, like in the anime, was just, I don't know, it was just really cool.
Hey, and number one, casting is amazing. Casting amazing from top to bottom. And
The
Not
casting's
being
basically
Monkey D.
perfect.
Luffy, you want to join this crew. He's just
Oh, yeah.
he's just so optimistic and cheery, and
I will just
you know.
and I will just say, like, hey, it's worth mentioning any character in One Piece that has even the hint, even the slightest, mildest hint of being a person of color, they absolutely were full on in on casting actors and actresses of color. And
Yeah, and they also added at least one woman, one of the cats, the
Yeah.
cat people, which I approve of that change.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the casting is basically perfect.
I mean, the actor McKinney, who's Roronoa Zoro, his father is Sonny Chiba, the famous martial arts actor and director.
sure is. I think if I have a complaint, I don't have a lot of complaints, but if I have a complaint, the ways in which they tone down some of the characters, I'm a little bit less into. I think Nami could stand to be like a little bit more out there. It kind of comes off as if you remember the Scott Pilgrim adaptation, where the way that they kind of interpret these over-the-top characters is that there's just a lot of sarcasm thrown around, and
Well,
it kind of
to be
has that
fair-
vibe.
I would like
be
to
fair,
think
she
that
sta-
they
I
might.
think she started out like that, like kind of sarcastic and distrusting, because of course she doesn't really. She always just believed in looking out for number one and everything, and
Yeah.
she slowly began to care, as of course as the
I would like to think
time
that
went
they'll
on.
change that in season 2 now that she's like really a part of the crew.
Well, it
But
helps
we'll
whenever
see.
there are more than one female character, I'm sure.
Yeah, and soon we'll have Vivi. So.
I very much look forward to however they're going to be approaching that, because I can tell you, like, the the second major arc of One Piece is where it really starts getting started. And
here's what I'm thinking, just in terms of structure. First episode, Logetown and Reverse Mountain. Second episode, they're just gonna like combine Laboon and Whiskey Peak. Next episode's Little Garden, and then Tony Chopper gets a 2-parter, and then hopefully it's a 5-episode season, and our Alabasta gets to be the 5 episodes. 10 episode season, yes, and Alabasta gets 5 episodes. If that's what I'm hoping for.
That would be a pretty decent structure considering the depth of each of those stories. Like what they would need. I could possibly see the Drum Kingdom arc being abbreviated into 1, but considering like some of them that they have turned into 2, I think that's still very reasonable.
I think with Tony Chopper's backstory and everything, I think 1 would be really pushing it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about it. Like I did have some complaints, but they weren't that big, and I can't remember them. Like, I really like this show.
My favorite thing that they do in this that they do not do in the anime or manga is that I love when they introduce a new pirate, they show them with their wanted poster and just have them rip through it in some dramatic way. It's such a fun effect.
Just breaks the fourth wall.
It does, but it's
hey,
but it's also like, hey, this is a character that's a big deal.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And outside of the Straw Hats, most accurate character portrayal, Kuro. Like, just perfect.
Yeah. Real good.
Are we done?
I think we're done. Anything that you guys want to plug in this 3-hour episode?
Yeah, really. I thought, this is so going to be a 2-hour episode.
What we need to do...
discussing the DLC.
We need to separate comic discussion into its own podcast. We need to have a separate podcast just for comics.
Well, tune in next Sunday for our Sonic Frontiers episode, I guess.
I promise I will put more time into it.
I guess tune in the Sunday after that for Sonic Superstars. And the Sunday after that for Sonic Hacking Contest, and then maybe we'll just take November off. I don't know.
We might have to.
I'm already at the DLC now for Sonic Frontiers.
Who knows? Maybe in November we will have some other things to fill its space. Maybe. No
maybe
promises.
We'll get the Knuckles series or Sonic Prime.
I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking of streaming content. But yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, I'd love it if you could bring that stuff back in November.
I have some ideas.
But anyway, thank you for hosting us today, Chris, GX.
Sure, thank you for thanking me for hosting. I don't know. Anything that you would like to plug? Anything that you've done on the site recently?
I already plugged my stuff. Like I expect I'll be doing Superstars coverage. I was gonna do some DLC coverage, but apparently Dread might be doing that. So I don't know. We'll see. But no, nothing too much.
Jason, anything you have going on? You want to share?
No, not currently. You can also find me occasionally on Sonic Stadium, and we'll be back, for next week's podcast for sure. Also, like I said, finally got to the DLC portion, so we'll be discussing that next week.
Good.
How about we do this? This is a thing that podcasts do.
I will be also at the Portland Retro Gaming Convention in 2 weeks. So if anybody's going out there, I'll be with my sister-in-law sharing a booth there.
Yes, GX. What other podcasts do?
Here's the thing that other podcasts do. Alex, if someone wanted to follow you on a social media, what would you recommend right now?
I mean, I wouldn't recommend anything because I don't like when people follow me, but I guess if you really want to, I'm at Nuckles87 on Twitter.
Jason, if someone wants to follow you on a social, what would you recommend?
Let me look up my.
If you don't have something you don't want to, you don't have to.
It's at Shigamadu
on
Twitter.
Sorry.
For the time being, before if the Gazette, if Elon makes that thing charges for it, I'm out. I'm completely
Same
out.
here. I'm gone too if he does that. But I think. So you're at Shigemoto. SISHIGAM
ADO. Yep.
ADO. Okay.
That's Twitter.
Okay. And
And I would
look, if you follow me, just be ready for some political takes. Okay, you're just gonna get that. So think about it.
And hey, I have basically all abandoned Twitter now, but I'm going to make a push. Go join the Sonic Stadium Discord. I basically hang out there most of the time, whether I am capable of doing writing for it or not. And we get conversations over there. The more conversations we have over there, the better the community it is. And you can go argue with me endlessly about something that we all know doesn't ultimately matter.
Yeah, like Shadow the Hedgehog's a good character.
Sure. That's what's going on here. I had a take on the Shadow game where I said something positive about it. I said that no, it does not have a good story or good characterization, but I think the way that the style in which it attempted to present its story was pretty okay. I think it presented its story in a way by linking it with actual gameplay better than most other Sonic stories do.
All right. I guess the Shadow fans will have to take that bit of positivity from you and accept it. I don't agree with that.
I like the idea of like, hey, the next path he takes is built into what you do in a level. I guess.
Oh,
So,
that part. Okay, so
yeah.
not the like 10 endings thing.
Oh, well, it depends. Like I said, I don't
It
think
explores the different dimensions of Shadow's character.
like I said, I don't think it's a good story. I think that it's not a bad idea to build that into gameplay.
All right.
So, with that, hey, we're heading out. Peace, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll be back next week with Sonic Frontier stuff.
Alrighty.
All right, I'm going. Bye.
I'm
Everything
starving.